Welcome to GenX Adulting, and today we have Jaime Townzen with us. Welcome, Jaime.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. It's nice to meet you both.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to meet you too. I should mention Jaime is an author and an artist, which we will get to later, in addition to many other hats that she wears. Our first question is always, what year were you born?
I was born in 1979, very close to the tail end of Gen X.
You squeaked in.
Yes.
You squeaked right in. And I think some people even, like, you're Gen X, but you also fall into the Zennial group too.
Yeah, I definitely have friends on both sides of that, timeline. I think because I have siblings that are all older than me, I always leaned much more into Gen X than I did millennial. I always just the music, the pop culture, everything was the older rather than the younger end of it. So
I think that's true of a lot of Gen Xers who are the younger siblings, that even though they're closer to the older millennial years, they do identify more with Gen X just from the influence of their older siblings. So
for sure.
Where were you born?
I was born in Orange County, Southern California. And okay. I've traveled a lot, but I've pretty much stayed right here because I just love it.
I was going to say, you're a native Californian.
I am. And I've lived all over the state. I love all areas of the state, but I am a very proud Californian. It would take a lot to get me to move away.
What's the furthest north you've lived?
My husband and I got married when we were living in Sacramento after college. Okay, he grew up a little, like an hour north of Sacramento is where he grew up. I'd say that's probably the furthest north I've lived. Yeah.
So what town, if you don't mind me asking, what town did he grow up in?
It's a small little rice town called Colusa, which people who buy their rice at Costco often recognize the name Cal Rose Rice.
Okay.
It's sold in big bags, big white bags that say Cal Rose. That is all grown in Colusa, California, and it's between Sacramento and Chico.
Okay, we've driven by there. There's no question. Yeah, so where we went to college was 20 miles north of the California border. So we used to, and we're deadheads. So we used to always go down to San Fran for shows. Always went to the Redwoods, Arcata, right?
Yep. There's Redding out there. We were actually in Chico, like 15 years ago.
My sister lives there. Yeah. So, but and I've done from Ashland where we went to school. I dated a guy in college that lived in LA. So I did that whole drive. Yeah. And I think that's
a big one.
Yeah.
It's a long drive.
I think it was 11-hour drive maybe, or 9, something like that. But California is one of the most beautiful places on earth. There's no question.
I have to agree. If anything that you enjoy doing outdoors, you can do in California, from skiing and mountain climbing to surfing and hiking and long distance bike riding and all the things. Yeah, it's really a beautiful outdoor state. And I would say 300 of the days of the year, we have good weather for it too. So
absolutely. And if you go up north, you even get seasons too, where it gets kind of chilly.
You don't even have to go up north. So I grew up, most of my childhood was spent in the foothills of the San Bernardino Mountains at about 3,500 to 4,000 foot altitude. And we got the full seasons there.
Wow.
And it snows once a year. And that's 70 miles from where I am right here at the beach in Orange County. So it's not that far. Just people don't realize that it's there.
I don't think people realize what California has to offer. Because like you said, it has a desert, it has everything, anything you want. It is really a treasure of our country. I love California, and I'm from Oregon, which is also a beautiful state.
Beautiful.
Northwest. So, but I will say that's my old stomping grounds, and anytime we used to go. So were your parents from California? Are they natives?
Both of my parents were born outside of California, but both of them, their parents moved them to California when they were relatively young. So my dad was born in Arkansas, and then his parents moved to Orange County. I want to say he was probably 5 or 6 years old at the time when they moved him, because he was here when Disneyland opened in 1955.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
he was already here and present for that. My mom came to Orange County when she was a freshman in high school at age 14 from New Jersey. Her parents had lived in Ohio and New Jersey most of her life, and they came out. My grandfather was an engineer, and he had an opportunity out here in California for a while. So,
Where in Jersey?
Orange.
Yeah, there's Orange. There's East Orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that she always associated that it was funny that they were moving from Orange in New Jersey to Orange in California.
Brian's from Jersey, so we always ask.
It's pretty close to. It's actually pretty close to New York.
Yeah, that is. So 2 East Coasters moved to California, basically, because Arkansas and Jersey, their families were from
Arkansas would be very deep south, more like
but still on the East Coast. You know what I mean?
For a West Coaster, it's the East Coaster.
It's East Coaster, yeah. So they traveled out west.
Yes.
How did they meet? Were they in the same town?
My dad was 2 years older than my mom, and they met in high school. He was on the football team. They actually were at the same high school together with Kevin Costner for a year.
No way.
And they were high school sweethearts. And then being raised from very conservative parents, they were sort of forced to marry when my mom graduated high school at 18 because she was pregnant at that time. Then she lost that baby, and they were able to stay married and not have kids for a long time because my dad ended up going to Vietnam and they did college and all those things before they actually had my brother and I. So
so they graduate, she's pregnant, they get married, she unfortunately loses the baby. And did your dad, right out of high school, go to work to start? Did they go and get their own little place, or were they living with your grandparents?
So they immediately got an apartment and went to Long Beach State. My dad had already done 2 years of community college, and so they were going to Long Beach State at the same time. And my dad inherited a contracting business from his father. And so at that time, he was learning how to be a general contractor and getting all of the different, I don't even know that he fully graduated from college, but he got all of the different certificates he needed to be a general contractor. And then while he was, when he stopped going to school, he was immediately drafted for Vietnam. And so while he was at Vietnam, my mom moved in with his parents because her parents had already left. And she lived with them and actually went to USC and became a dental hygienist. During the time that my dad was gone, she got a degree to do that.
So when she graduated, she also went to Long Beach State?
Yeah, they both did.
While she was pregnant, or had she lost the baby?
So they got married in September and she lost the baby within a couple weeks. And so they immediately, they were already, So it was right away that they both were enrolled in school.
Did she stay at Long Beach State and graduate from there?
Yeah. She got her bachelor's from Long Beach, and then she got her continuation. It wasn't like a master's or anything, but in dental hygiene from USC.
That's pretty awesome, because that wasn't completely normal at that time for women to, it was like women were going to college, but it wasn't like, I know for my mom, and she's a boomer. I assume your mom's a boomer, right?
1950. Yep.
Okay. So my mom was 1947. So when she was in high school, even like it wasn't really discussed among her friends going to college. So it wasn't how it is for us. So it's pretty cool that your mom just went for it.
So my mom's mom was way before her time. She had a dual master's in mathematics and fine art. Her fine art master's was from Cornell. And she had 4 children in 3 years, because my mom is a twin. So they had a boy, and then a year later they had twin girls, and then a year later they had another girl. And so she was a stay-at-home mom. My grandma was a stay-at-home mom, but she used her mathematics degree to invest all of the money that my grandfather earned and really grow their wealth. And then she was an artist the whole time. She also went to Rutgers to study how to be a good gardener because she couldn't just take like the local gardening classes. She was just a highly educated person and always seeking out education. And my grandfather came here from Yugoslavia when he was 12, and he got his engineering degree from Case, and he was always highly pushing education. And when my mom married my dad, he had this hope that she would become his secretary in his office. And I think when he went to Vietnam, she was very much like, that's never going to happen. I'm going to build myself a career with degrees of my own. And I'm glad that she did. I'm really glad that she did, because they probably would have gotten divorced a lot sooner, and I would not exist if she had tried to be his secretary.
No, I mean, honestly, good for her. And did he know she was continuing on with her education while he was over in Vietnam?
Yeah. And I think he did respect that her parents were highly educated people that were encouraging her to do that. I think he just thought, well, you'll be my little wife and we'll be together all the time. I think he had a very naive attitude about it all, but
yeah. And I think it was normal too back then to expect that of women. Like that would have just been the natural. I mean, Gen X men thought that too, many Gen X men. So definitely boomer men did. But so when your dad stopped going to school, he probably knew the risk of getting drafted, right? I mean, you said he didn't graduate, so he chose to stop going?
He chose to stop, thinking that he could just go to work. And at that time, that must have been around 1971, 72-ish, I guess. I don't know. I don't know the exact timeline, but at whatever time that was, because they didn't have children and he was not enrolled in school, he was just first up on the draft. Yeah. It happened right away. It was so fast. Yeah.
So how long was he over there?
I'm not sure exactly. I think it was less than 2 years, because he had a severe aneurysm while he was there, and actually was in a enemy hospital for a long time.
Wow.
And they told my mom on multiple occasions while she was living with his parents that he had died, and he had not. It was a really stressful experience for these two young people to go through. So
crazy.
The fact that they tried to make it work still when he got back. I mean, they both had been through a lot apart from one another.
Probably like what, 18 or 19, maybe 20?
I think she was about 21, 22, and he was about 23, 24 at that point. Yeah.
So they started off with some trauma with losing the baby. They were both young, 18 and 20, right?
And then sort of forced into marriage before they were ready.
Right.
They definitely would not have done it otherwise. They were both just going to go to college. Yeah.
Exactly. So they had kind of a vision of how life's going to go, and then boop, not like
they
that.
Were having fun.
Yeah, obviously.
Yes.
Which as you do in high school, but it ties to your book, I think, a little bit.
It does. It really does.
So, but then he goes to war, and that's traumatic enough. Hello.
At best.
Absolutely.
And a lot of folks.
I'm still processing. Your mother was told more than once that he died. Like, what was
it's crazy.
Why more than once? I don't understand. Was it like he died? Oh, we made a mistake. He's alive. Oh, he died.
Torture.
Well, because they knew he had this aneurysm, and then they couldn't find him because he was in an enemy hospital and people weren't giving so they assumed he had been dead. And so they sent that. I don't have all the details. Unfortunately, he's not here anymore to ask a lot of that of, but I really have clear memories of my mom, sharing with me how traumatizing all of that experience was. And I loved his parents very much, but his mother was not a warm, fuzzy, loving individual. So for my mom to be in that house getting that news without her twin sister, without her parents, without really the love and support of anyone around her, I think she felt really scared and alone for a long time. Yeah.
Because her family was in Jersey still, right?
Actually, so my grandfather, he was an engineer of waterways. And so like after World War II, he was sent to Japan to rebuild the waterways that we had bombed and were destroyed. And he worked in Australia building bridges and waterways. And that was what he did in Southern California. And then he was sent back to Australia for a while. He was sent to areas in Africa. And then he did go back to Ohio. They never went back to New Jersey, but they went back to Ohio. And that's where they settled when he retired. And they lived there until he passed away at age 92. Yeah.
Wow.
So did her siblings kind of go with him? Did your grandmother and her siblings go to Australia, go to all these different places?
Her youngest sister did go to Australia for a very short time, but her twin sister went to the University of Arizona and met her husband there and became a teacher, and then came back and resided in Southern California I think probably around 1977, 1978, she came back. And so they, at that point, they did their best to stay as close to each other as they could, because they definitely have always, I don't know how many twins you have in your life, but when you're the child of a twin, you figure out pretty quickly that their twin is their person. Like their spouse will matter a lot to them, their children will matter a lot to them, but their person is their twin. That is their person for everything. So
that's wild. They stay super connected, huh?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
So to not have her there, it sounds like she moved there after all this stuff went on, but to not have her with her. And it wasn't like now where you can just text or call, so it's letters and landlines and all that. And then she's with her in-laws who aren't necessarily the most emotionally supportive. So I'm sure there's trauma there. So then I assume when she got the news he's alive, that was a joyous moment for her. And he,
of course.
And he came home, right? They sent him home after.
Well, no, then it was like he's dead again.
Well,
right
a
couple times. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, there was back and forth, and then there was concern about what capacity he would be coming home in, because how severe was the aneurysm, those kinds of things. But he did come home. Gosh, I mean, my brother was born in 76. I want to say he had to have been home by 74-ish. And he immediately just dove full force into working for his father and becoming a general contractor and building a life for them. So, they bought their own home, and
it's amazing that he even survived. Not only did he survive Vietnam, he survived an aneurysm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's phenomenal, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, he had multiple strokes before he passed away at age 67. And his mother also had multiple strokes before she passed away a couple of years ago. And even his dad had multiple strokes over the years. So I'm definitely aware of this, and I try to keep it in mind as I talk to doctors and stuff, and they ask me medical history. I'm like, well, so far I seem good, but I want you to just keep track of this for me.
Right.
What's their background? Because it was your mom's...
was Yugoslavia.
He was Yugoslavian, but what about your dad's side?
So my dad's mother, Scotch Irish, and she said some Native American, although I don't believe it. But
I have an Irish mom who mixes stuff in too, so I can relate to that. That's funny.
And my granddad, I believe everything from both of them was somewhere in the British Isles area, whereas my mom's family was a little bit. Her mom was British in heritage, but those three, my dad's parents and my mom's mom, were all multiple generations, had lived in the United States for a long time.
Okay.
Whereas my granddad, when he came here at 12, he was 6'2", and they put him in a kindergarten classroom because he didn't speak English. And so there was a big chip on his shoulder from, Eastern Europe and all the wars and everything. He was a pacifist in nature because of everything he had seen. He came here, with his mom was a widow, a war widow. And so she came here basically as a mail order bride for another Slavic man who had lost his wife here. And brought her 12-year-old son. And I have, the Ellis Island paperwork of when they landed. And Yeah, so
Amazing.
it
cool.
definitely had a lot of impact though on how their family worked and how my mom was raised. And yeah.
Okay, so your dad is back from Vietnam. Do they
Yep.
move out of his parents' house? Do they get their own
They
place?
do. They
Okay.
moved all of like
Okay.
2 miles away
Okay.
to a
Okay.
brand new suburban development that was very much like picture perfect American, Stepford Wives, California at the time. Everything was strip malls and suburbia. And that's where my brother was born and where I was born, here in Orange County.
And were both sets of grandparents within that proximity?
No,
Or
no,
just
no. My mom's parents were gone.
they were in
They
Ohio.
never came back. Yep, they
Or
were gone.
They
Japan
traveled
or
and they were in
Australia.
Ohio,
Yeah.
right? So they were traveling and then ended up in
Yep.
Ohio. But his
Well, he was
parents,
working.
yeah, he was working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But his parents stayed close in proximity. And so,
Yes.
and how long? Because I know they divorced, right?
Yeah. So actually, now that you say it though, his parents, when my dad fully took over and once they bought their house, his parents actually built their dream house in Hawaii and they left too.
Oh,
So
okay.
they just gave everything. They gave the company to my dad and they gave their house in Orange County to his brother and they left. And so by the time I was born in 1979, they were already well established in Hawaii, and
Okay.
had been there for a while. Yeah.
Okay. So by the time you were born, both sets of grandparents were not in
Gone.
Orange County. They were gone.
The growth in that area during that time was phenomenal, right?
Explosive. Yeah. So general contractors did really well back then because there was a lot of growth. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how long were they married until they got divorced?
So they got married when my mom was 18.
Right.
I was born when she was 29. And they split up by the time I was 9 months old.
Okay.
So I have no memory of their being together. My brother was 3.5 at the time, or four by the time they split up.
And do you know why they got divorced?
Yeah. So my dad started to have a relationship with the woman across the street, and my mom found out about it.
Okay. So do you know how long that affair had been going on until she found out about it?
So the people across the street had already separated and their divorce was final. And the husband had moved to Minnesota and they had teenage daughters who were actually our babysitters. And I know that my dad met the woman, of course, through their neighborhood, but then they were members of a racket club and would regularly see her at the racket club. And so it must have gone on for a while, because my mom, when she found out, she was completely done. She was so heartbroken that she had been pregnant and nursing a newborn and all of this was going on. And she immediately moved out. She couldn't even, he wasn't willing to move out. So she immediately moved out and got herself a little condo and was trying to be the single mom with the two of us. But he got married right away. And that meant in California.
He married her right away?
Yeah. By the time I was 3, they were getting remarried. And by the time I was 4, my mom had gotten remarried to that woman's husband. So here's what happened. Okay, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So listeners, buckle up. Let's hear this story.
Because my dad's mother was the daughter of a pastor, and she flat out told him that if he was willing to break up his marriage over this woman, he better marry her right away or he'd lose his inheritance. So he did. At the same time, in California, divorces were becoming more and more and more popular in the early 80s. And because they got married first, that was considered the more stable household. And the courts did year on, year off custody, where I would have to live with my father for a year and not see my mother for a full year, even though she was no seeing at all. And so my mom was heartbroken over this. She had not even, she had not done anything except been cheated on and tried to so she ended up going to Minnesota because she had stayed friends with the husband of the woman across the street. And he had set up his life in Minnesota and told her, it's beautiful here. You can totally, own a home here. It's affordable. And so he introduced her to people in the Lake Minnetonka area, and she got a job as a dental hygienist there. And they ended up dating and, yes, getting married by the time I was 4. So I know, it's just crazy. So my stepsisters were the babysitters across the street, and now their mom was my stepmom and their dad was my stepdad, and my parents were their stepparents. So the 4 of us children at that time, when I was 4, the oldest was 18. We shared the same 4 parents. So they had a kid going into kindergarten, a kid going into college, and 2 in between, all with these 4 parents who truly hated each other. My mom hated my dad, and my mom hated my stepmom. My dad hated my mom and hated my step. Everybody hated each other, and it was so contentious.
Wow.
For another 15 years. Yeah.
And so I'm just going back. I'm going back to, I don't understand how your dad had sole custody for a year. Was that the California law then? Is that you could separate children for that length of time from a parent?
Because my mom needed to work, she couldn't be 100% childcare, and my stepmom didn't work, and she could be. And then this was a 2-parent household. And so, I can't even believe that it was done. But I lived with my dad when I was 3, my mom when I was 4, and my dad when I was 5. And then my mom was done with that. She was like, I can't handle this. And my mom and my stepdad moved back to California, and she refiled to get custody because she's like, I am not doing this anymore. I cannot be away from my children for a full year again.
Yeah. I mean, because are you talking about even holidays?
Yes.
She said you couldn't have no contact. Right? No contact.
In fact, my 5th birthday, I have a very traumatic memory of my 5th birthday in which my mom tried to bring me a doll for my birthday, and my stepmom wouldn't let her in, and they were throwing me a party. And so I started crying. And I say this because my stepmom knows I love her very much. We have a very good relationship now. But I got slapped across the face and told that I was ungrateful for the party that was being thrown for me, when I'm crying because my mom sent a toy and I didn't even get to hug my mom. I didn't actually get to see her on my 5th birthday. And it was very traumatic, very, very traumatic for sure.
I can't imagine a more traumatic situation than the way your parents' marriage ended. More traumatic for your mom. Let's say she's betrayed and has had the rug pulled out from under her, and could be, who knows, having some postpartum anyways, because she's had a baby. Hello. So her hormones are way off. She's nursing. Let's take all that into consideration. Your brother's 3.5. He's a handful. And so now she's having to leave this perfect suburban white picket fence life. And as a single mom in the early 80s, right?
Yes,
and that wasn't, my mom was a single mom too. It was not normal. My mom never got invited to chaperone a school dance because the other moms didn't want her around. It was not normal to have your parents divorce, and no matter what I get people saying it was normal. It was not. And it was not normal to be a single mom. They were not accepted. So your mom is already dealing with that. And then this warped court system in California, which I'm shocked, because in general, California is fairly progressive. So I don't even understand where that
Nothing like that would happen now. Nothing even remotely close would ever happen now.
But I don't understand. Sure, she's working. My mom was working, but she's working. But that doesn't justify you and your brother not seeing her every other weekend, let's say, or every other Christmas. So I'm just blown away.
I'm shocked. I'm just sitting
shocked.
Here totally shocked.
To you, because that's all you know, and your poor brother actually probably knew different, and then having to adjust to that that had to have been rough. And then the trauma on your mom. So those years, we talked about fight or flight. You were put into fight or flight right from the start. It's a lot of Gen Xers were put in fight or flight right from the start, and probably just continued on that path, I would assume, for most of your childhood, right?
Absolutely.
They didn't like each other. They fought. That just continued.
They fought all the time. Yeah. Yeah, every holiday. Once my mom and my stepdad moved back to Southern California, they moved less than a mile from my mom's twin sister who had kids, a daughter exactly the same age as me, 3 months apart from me. And so once they moved there, my mom got custody, and it was the every other Christmas with my dad, every other Thanksgiving kind of thing. Unfortunately for me, that was pretty much my whole relationship with my dad, was those brief holidays. I got 4th of July because my birthday's in July. He always just said, well, we'll celebrate your birthday at the 4th of July, and we'll have you for the 4th of July. And then I got some sort of Thanksgiving and some sort of Christmas, not necessarily on the day, and that was pretty much my relationship with my dad my entire childhood after that.
So
once my mom was back.
Okay. So even though he lived close, he was physically close, he wasn't involved. You didn't go there every other weekend. He wasn't.
No, because because the two stepsisters were 14 and 10 years older than I am. Once the younger of those two graduated high school, my stepmom and my dad became very happy empty nesters, and they had a very prominent social life because he lived right where he grew up. And so all of his friends were still there, and she joined the women's club, and he, had his golfing buddies, and they went on cruises with their friends. And it became very obvious very quickly that what was going on with my brother and I was not of much interest.
I would say she rivals you in terms of some wonky stuff.
You might. Yeah. I mean, because so there's definitely abandonment issues there. But did your stepfather, did he fill that role to some degree?
He absolutely did. He was an incredible stepfather for somebody who had raised two daughters. And it would have been totally understandable for him to be like, listen, I don't want to do the toddler elementary boy through teenagers thing. I'm not interested. He didn't do that. He was fully invested. He was very loving, attentive. He was more, the typical father of that era, where he would go to work and come home and expect dinner made and his laundry done. And I don't go to parent-teacher conferences. That's for somebody else to do, that kind of thing. He was more of that, but we had a very loving relationship. He was always very invested in everything that we were doing. Yeah.
Thank God for that you had that other figure. And for your brother too, because that's important for a boy as well. So that's wonderful.
Unfortunately, my brother is the one out of the four of us that really, it sounds crazy to say this because you're saying, oh, I rival Nicole in the trauma, but I would say I got off easiest out of everybody, because the teenagers who understood what was happening when the parents switched like this, that was a very traumatic experience for them. They were like, what the hell is going on right here? Wait, what? What do you mean you're married? What is happening? And so there was a lot of resentment, especially from my oldest sister for a long time about all of that. And then my brother was the one, I would say, who he really got lost in the mix of it, because being separated from our dad for so long, but then this isn't his father, our stepfather isn't his father. He had a really hard time accepting authority of somebody other than our father, but our father didn't really want to be an invested father anymore. And my brother tried moving in with our dad for a few years, and they were, like I said, real interested in their social life and not real interested in parenting. And so he just got punished all the time for not being trustworthy, but they weren't actually doing what they needed to do as parents to guide him. And he had a hard time. He very much loved and respected our stepfather the older he got, but most of his growing up formative years, he was at odds with both of the fathers and having a lot of acting out.
No, I think it makes 100% sense. And especially considering you said there was strife and conflict through your whole childhood. That means for your stepsisters, it was always like that. And they were fully aware of everything.
Of course.
And then for your brother, and then that's all you knew. So I'm sure for at least you and your brother, but especially you, but maybe your brother too, were you walking on eggshells pretty much? Did you find yourself always okay, where's the next thing coming from? And did you find yourself also becoming a huge people pleaser from all of
huge people pleaser. So yeah, that was I was the straight A student. I was definitely chatty in class and everything, but I was, don't get in trouble, don't make waves, because that was Trevor's job. My brother was the one making waves and getting in trouble. And so,
Okay.
When I would come into the class 2 or 3 years after him, they'd be like, "Are you like your brother?" No, I'm the opposite of my brother. I'm the good kid, So yeah, I was, I think, second in my graduating class. I was class speaker, went straight to UCLA. Like, I had to follow all the rules so that nobody was ever upset with me.
Very compliant.
And
yes.
high achiever. A lot of children that come from high conflict situations and instability are high achievers, because it also gives you a sense of control of your life, right?
A sense of control. And it was the only thing when I would be with my dad at those 4th of Julys and they'd have 50 people at their house, it would be, oh, let's not talk about what Trevor's been up to. But Jamie's a straight A student. Oh, Jamie's going to this college. Aren't we so proud of her? So I wanted that kind, because I wasn't getting anything else. I really was not getting anything else from them. So I wanted that feedback, and I really was seeking it out. Yeah.
You were getting the love and acceptance through your accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
So you each had your roles. Your stepsisters probably were like, screw this, I'm out of here. This is nuts. As soon as I can get away and get out of this house, right?
The oldest, but the second one was much more of the people pleaser, the not make waves also, because that was her role for so long in her own house that split up when she was, 14 years old. So she was, if her older sister was getting into trouble, she needed to be the good kid. Yeah.
Right.
So we both fell into that a little bit. Yeah.
Are you two close?
We were pretty close. I mean, we were 10 years apart, but sorry. She passed away from ALS in 2019 at age 50.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
What about with your older stepsister?
We're still close. We have a very good relationship, but she chose to move permanently to Minnesota when she graduated high school. Because she felt like that was about as close to her parents as she was willing to live. And she never came back. But she has since really repaired her relationship and has a very good relationship with her mom now. And we all are close. Yeah.
Good.
And all of us that are remaining at this point. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of loss, but those of us who are remaining are all very close. So.
Did you notice a difference because you said your older sister, was she born in 1965, right? And then you
64.
were 64. Okay, so she's right there. She's Generation Jones, and then oldest Gen X or youngest Boomer, and then you're 79. So that's the whole range right there.
Yep.
And then your brother and your other stepsister in between there. Did you observe any differences in how each of you were parented as time went on, or was the parenting similar?
I was too young to ever witness the oldest, Angela's, parenting because, I was 4, she was 18 when they were all remarried. So I never lived in the same house with Angela ever.
Okay.
Christina was, when I was starting kindergarten, we shared a wall, and she was 15, 16 in high school and listening to Rick Springfield and George Michael and braiding my hair and putting ribbons in it. So I did witness very much the praise of her and what a good girl she was and how sweet she was. And you want to be just like her. And during that 1 year of my kindergarten year, my brother would have been in second or third grade, I guess, third grade. And he was the troublemaker, and he was knocking over the Christmas tree, and he was getting in trouble for riding his bike too fast and crashing and needing stitches. And so don't be like this kid, be like that kid. So I definitely learned that from how I did witness Christina get parented. But then once I moved to my mom's for first grade, I never lived with my dad again. And Christina never lived in my mom and my stepdad's house. So.
Okay. So did you still see Christina ever once you went over to your mom's? Only on 4th of July and like every other Christmas?
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, that had to have been rough because you had been building this relationship and you probably looked up to her and she would braid your hair, and then it was sporadic. And I'm sure that was hard for her too, because you were this adorable little sister. that she doted
I
on?
don't know. I think maybe there was love there, but I think I was also, she's a teenager. Like she didn't necessarily want to be straddled with babysitting a 4 or 5,
True.
6-year-old either.
True.
Especially because my dad and my stepmom were newly married and trying to go out and have fun all the time. They were glad to just leave me with her, and that I probably seemed a lot more like an obligation than adorable.
She was probably parentified a little bit, where she was responsible for you in that way, and your brother too. So you said you were you always high achieving right from the start? Like as earliest memory academically, were you just like one of those kids that I'm going to get straight A's, hundreds on everything?
So I know that I struggled a little bit in those early elementary years to figure out, I think I was always pretty smart and I always wanted to do well. But if there was a conflict with the teacher, if the teacher didn't seem to like me, I would shut down completely. My 5th grade teacher, though, I am still friends to this day with. He was just a real like positive energy in my life and really uplifting. And that was when it really started to be like, okay, I see. You're telling me I can be whatever I want to be. He gave me the nickname of Hollywood. He's like, you may be an actress or you may be a director or a producer, who knows? Like he was just always very much like, you just got to work and you'll get whatever you want. And so I fully embraced that from that point on. So yeah, probably starting at 10, I would say I was really genuinely a high achiever.
That's amazing. He came into your life and was such an inspiration and just changed the trajectory. Did you, through elementary school and middle school, did you play any sports or do art or any extracurriculars?
I was always a swimmer, and then in middle school I got into basketball, and in high school I did some basketball and some tennis and some swimming. But I would say I was never a real athletic person. I just liked the camaraderie of the team, and like I could do the sports, but I was never great at them. So my mom like gives me all my old trophies. We just had to move my mom into a retirement community. And so she gave me all these old trophies and she's like, you should put them out. I'm like, why? I don't need all these participation awards. Like, it's just lame.
My mom gave us your trophies when we got married, and I think they've been under our bed ever since. Like, I don't even know if we might have
a few. Display them. That would be kind of cool.
Last thing we need.
Right back here.
No, we're good. And I think I have my kids. So I think it's just something you do because I'm waiting till they get married, and then I'll be like, here's your 4 bins I've been saving of random stuff that you don't want.
Stop giving out trophies, thankfully.
No, I think they still do.
Well, the city does, but
yeah, no, I think ours are older now, but I think for younger ones, they still get little trophies. So then in high school, you did basketball.
A little bit.
Okay. And did you do any other?
I lettered. I was a varsity letterer in tennis. I was a varsity letterer in swimming. I was high, 4.0. So I got all the academic letters. I was on the debate team. I was the spirit club president for, all the sports and everything.
Now, did your mom and stepdad come to your games? Like how our generation doesn't miss a single second of anything of our kids typically? Did you have the cheering section for all your stuff?
I have tried to explain this to my kids so much that they have no idea what it's like when you go to all your practices and your parents did not drop you off at those practices. You got yourself there, or you stayed after school until practice was done, and then you got a ride home somehow. I would go to my tennis matches. Yeah, not a single parent there. Maybe on the team of 20 kids, 2 parents would be there, and they were definitely not mine. My mom was a working dental hygienist, and she couldn't take off work. She got paid by the patient. She didn't have a salary. She got paid by the patient. So if she took time off, that was just money straight out of her pocket.
Yeah, so, I think even if a parent didn't work, though, it wasn't the norm to go do that, right? There wasn't this. Now it's like people stay for practices. We've done it when our kids were younger. We stayed for practices.
It amazes me to see how many parents are sitting there for like a 2:30 game on a Tuesday. I'm like, how can you all be
Yes.
here? I know why I can be here, but how can you all be here?
Yeah.
And then they'll, when my husband will show up to something, they're like, oh, we haven't seen you in forever, Patrick. Because he's got a job. I don't know what you guys are doing, but somebody has to pay our bills.
True. I don't know if it's, it's true though, because even when our kids were playing, it seemed like everyone was there. I feel like people left work to come watch this game and then went back you're right. That's such a great point because somehow everyone was there, but it's the opposite, I think, of what your parents came to a lot of stuff.
My parents did, yeah.
They came to a lot of he had more of that. A lot of
my friends' parents did too, though, actually.
Yeah, where you grew up, I think there was very few.
The dads would sit at practice and watch and BS with each other, and then they'd all show up for games.
He grew up in the small traditional town in Jersey. I think everyone was married. There were probably very few divorces, and it was just that very Leave It to Beaver vibe. So
that's funny that you say that. My husband, we always joked when we first got together that he was from the Leave It to Beaver and I was from the Osbournes. Yeah. So there was not, we were as far separate because his dad was the only middle school science teacher in their entire town. So everybody knew his dad, and his dad had school hours. So when school was done, he could be at every basketball practice and game and rooting his son on and taking him to tournaments. And his mom was a part-time librarian. So she worked the hours when he was at school, and she would be there making sure there was after school snacks and getting him to things too. So his parents were there for everything. Yeah. And their little town still to this day only has 2 stoplights. I mean, there was nothing else going on in that town besides the basketball games. Yeah.
Right. No, and I think that's true. I think there are Gen Xers, and we've talked about this before, that had upbringings like yours and like mine. And then unbeknownst to us, well, no, I actually assumed everyone had an upbringing like Brian's. I thought I was the only weird one. I thought something was like, what's wrong with my life? Like I'm the only one with divorced parents. And then now that I'm older and Gen X is connecting through all of these ways, I'm realizing there's so many of us that had a similar upbringing to mine.
Well, we're the divorce generation. We're the first divorces, the first daycares, the first after school program, all that shit, right?
But when you're going through it, you don't know.
I didn't know you existed.
Yeah. Like we were right. You thought, and we were almost like living through a part of history where there was a cultural shift. And so those of us that were children, no one knew how to deal with the trauma we were suffering because no one had even defined that trauma yet.
Right.
And there's no technology to connect the dots. No social media, no phones. Well, the landlines, but that was.
No, but even but we wouldn't have even known how to communicate about it. There were no words to put to what we were going through, I don't think.
In my life, my friend groups, it was probably 50-50. About 50% of them, their parents were still married and it seemed kind of idyllic. And about 50% of them were like me. And I had my cousin, my mom's twin sister, those parents got divorced when she was in 3rd grade. So, 5 years after my parents separated. So I had enough of like, okay, we understand one another. We can sort of trauma bond. And then, so I was more drawn to my friends that had stable households, that I would want to go spend time there because it felt calming to be around that instead of around my household. And so it makes complete sense to me that as soon as I met my husband and saw what his upbringing, I was so like drawn in, like, and I remember I said to him, when we first got married, I said, you better not break my heart, because if you do, I'm keeping your family and you have to have mine.
That's awesome. Did you ever find that when you would go to those friends' houses where everything seemed perfect, did you also find it kind of fascinating? Did you ever watch how their family moved, talked, like just their whole home life? Because it was so different from yours. I found I did that, where I would just observe and they're just doing normal stuff, but it was so foreign to me that I would just sit back and kind of watch them like I'm watching a TV show almost. It fascinated me.
Yeah. It's interesting to look back though, because even though the fighting and the chaos was a significant part of my childhood, both of those marriages ended up lasting until my father and my stepfather died. They ended up having 35, 37-year marriages.
Right.
So they were learning how to have a good relationship, each in their own household, but
Right.
also there was all this chaos happening at the same time. And so I was getting both of it. And I would sort of watch what's happening in my friends' houses where it seemed like their parents were stable. I was very much an observer, which I think is why I fell into loving writing, because I love to all the nuances you can describe about people's interactions with one another and the little details that make a huge difference, because I was observing it all.
Yeah. So you brought up meeting your husband, which I know was in college. So let's go, I guess, what, senior year? When did you know you wanted to go to college? When did you decide where you wanted to go and why?
I knew by the time I was going into my freshman year of high school that I wanted to go to UC Berkeley. I was so certain I'm going to go to UC Berkeley. My very conservative stepfather used to call me a bleeding heart liberal, and it made sense that I wanted to go there. But my brother, who had been sort of a jackass in high school, to put it like he would have 40 tardies in his first period class. He'd have, ditch school all the time, barely graduated. He went to community college for 2 years. And because I had basically done all the research and explained all the reasons that UC Berkeley was the most amazing school, he transferred from community college to UC Berkeley. So when I got my acceptance letter, I gladly held it up and said, look where I'm not going, because that campus is still too small for the two of us to be in the same place. So I went to UCLA instead.
Was that your backup? Was that your second choice?
By the time I was applying, I had decided that UCLA, because my brother was already at Berkeley, I just applied to Berkeley basically to prove I could get in. But I had decided that UCLA was where I wanted to go. I actually ended up getting into pretty much all the schools that I applied to, which at that time wasn't that hard for somebody with the academics that I had. But I look back at it now, since my oldest just started college. I had zero help with applying to colleges. It was all on me. I had to do the research. I had to write the essays. I had to edit the essays. I had to mail the essays. I had to do it all. I didn't have help studying for the SATs or the ACTs, that was all on me. I had to get myself to the test. I had to schedule it and pay for it. And so
that's all Gen X. I think all of us Gen Xers who went to college had to do that. I think, I don't remember, you think about how much we are involved now with our children before they go to college, and we know everything that has to be done and the dates and all that. No one was guiding us. We were just kind of and on our own. And it's amazing that it's so Gen X. Of course we got it. Because if we want to do it, we're going to get it done. But again, another thing, we just figured it out.
I think it was smart kids like you, though, that the rest of us followed.
Probably.
If you had it under control, we're like, all right, we got to follow her.
They were examples.
So I think all through high school, I always was like, well, I have to be a lawyer or a doctor. I have to be a lawyer or a doctor. And I thought that if I went to Berkeley, I would be a lawyer. And if I went to UCLA, I'd be a doctor. And so I got into UCLA and I was pre-med. And that's because that was the expectation that I had been told by my parents, like, you're smart, you're capable, so you need to do this. That's people who are smart and capable need to follow these paths. And so that was what I understood. And then I got to UCLA and I was miserable. I hated being a bio major. I didn't like any of the classes related. I was in Calc 2 and I was passing my classes, but I was unhappy. But I had passed the AP test on all of my English and language arts stuff. And so I was in a high division English class, and I was a freshman leading discussions with juniors and seniors. And my professor was an adjunct professor who pulled me aside after class one day. And she's like, can you tell me why this says you're a bio major? Because to me, it's very clear that you love literature. You love discussing literature. You're a very talented writer. Why would you be a bio major? And it was like this just light bulb went off in my head. Like, you mean I can just do what I like because it's something I'm enjoying and I don't have to go down this path? And it was at that moment that I was like, okay, I'm out of here. I just was, I had tried to make things work at UCLA. I had some good friends who I'm still friends with to this day, but I knew that being in that environment wasn't great for me. And so I transferred to a small liberal arts school and moved into an apartment off campus with my best friend and started studying writing instead.
So how were you at UCLA before you made that decision?
Just my freshman year.
So you did freshman. So did you live in the dorms at UCLA?
Yes.
Did you know your roommate going in?
My two roommates in a 10 by 12 room. I did not know them and they hated each other. I was right between two people who absolutely hated each other in every way. Did they know each
other beforehand?
Nope.
Okay, so the three of you didn't. Did you do the old fashioned? I know for me it was like I sent a letter and she sent a letter back. And I think we talked on the landline phone once. Was it that type of thing?
So I was right, like the summer before I started UCLA, they installed Ethernet cords in all the dorm rooms. So I was right at that point in history where people started having email and started having, so the very tail end of high school, I started college in 1997.
Oh, okay. Yes, she's much younger than us. Yes. No, but imagine that. So we're 71. So in 8 years, because we started
1971.
Yeah. 1971 we're born. So we started college in 89.
Yeah.
And so when I say wrote a letter and landline, it was truly like that. But look, change in 8 years. Like
I remember. That's what that's what I'm shocked because when we. Like our senior year of college, they put in this beautiful computing center. Do you remember that?
And that would have been 93.
And they had network printers.
Yes.
So you could print to the network printer. You could print and get up and walk over and get it. So before then, it wasn't like that.
Not at all. No. So we went through the whole shift of nothing.
Yeah.
And then watching it, and then we got married in 94 and he started right away learning this whole computer thing. So it was brand new baby stuff, right? For the general public. But you would have been able to email your roommates, right?
Which we did. Yes, we actually emailed our roommates. And I think I did talk to one of them on the phone, one brief conversation before we got to school. The other, I don't think I did have a conversation with. And it's funny also, just a fun little tidbit in the difference in our ages, because my siblings would point this out to me. My dad, as a general contractor who owned his own business, got us a personal computer that I learned to type on a personal computer at home before I ever learned to write with a pencil. When I was 4 years old, I was typing on a personal computer. So I'm right there at the threshold of having personal technology at your fingertips. So
But that's a trip.
Well, you probably had maybe ICQ, AIM, like the AOL Instant Messenger, all that stuff, right? When you were in college.
All those things. Yes.
So wow. Were you part of the MySpace, or were you a little older than the MySpace people?
I was on MySpace for a little while. Yeah.
Okay. Because you would have been in that oldest Gen X, younger or older millennial, and they were part of the MySpace. The older millennials were. So, okay. So when you emailed with them, did you get a vibe? Like, were you nervous or did you kind of click at all?
I think I definitely could see right away where I was as a people pleaser, where I was going to connect with this person and where I was going to connect to this person. So one of my roommates was second generation Chinese from Southern California, and was very like tiger parents, like really strict about studies and did not have much of a social life. And the other was rushing her sorority the first semester. And so I had always, like I said, I was Spirit Club president. I had always had a big social group. So I could understand that world, and I could understand the needing to have the straight A's and buckling down. And so they both would just complain to me all the time about the other, because they couldn't understand each other, but I could understand both of them.
Yeah.
It was a miserable place to be.
You were on top of being a bio major, which was like completely not where you belonged. You also were absorbing all of this toxic energy, being the in between of these two people. So I'm sure by the end of your freshman year, you had multiple reasons to get out of there. You were like, this, enough already. And so it's amazing. Another teacher, your fifth grade teacher was impactful, and another teacher changed the trajectory of your life.
Yes. And I've actually recently reached out to her via email, and she was so glad that I did when I told her that my novel came out, because I was like, you probably had no idea how transformative that one conversation after class really was, because I finished your class and you had no reason to know whether you would ever see me again. And a campus of 30,000 students at that time, why, you might never ever see a student again. And I said, you made a huge impact on my life. None of my life would look the way that it looks right now if you had not done that day.
That's and what a gift to her that you did that.
Yeah.
Because that I'm sure you can't even understand. Like I can't, I'm not a teacher, but how much that would have meant to know that she had such an impact on one of her students. So how did your family take it? I assume you did all the things applying to your new college. Like no one helped you there. You handled all that. How'd the family handle it?
Quite the opposite. So my mom knew I was miserable at UCLA. And in March of that year, towards the end of my second, because they're on the trimester system, it was the end of my second term. I was in my dorm room, and the dean of admissions from the University of Redlands called me in my dorm room and said, your mom brought your transcripts here and said that you wanted to transfer. And I can tell you that we can have you in next semester. You don't even have to do anything, because I had all the grades and everything. They were like, you don't even have to. And so it just made it real easy, because that was a small liberal arts school close to my home where a lot of my friends had gone, including my very best friend. And it just made it easy. I didn't have to do anything. So it's the exact opposite of getting into college with all these like lofty expectations to go to a big university. I didn't have to do anything at all. They just said, you're accepted if you want to come.
Oh. Yeah, and did she know you wanted to go to that school, or did she just?
I don't think I would have chosen to go to that school, except that they made it so easy, and I was so miserable, and there were so many of my friends there that it was a convenient next option. And when I looked into it and learned about their writing program, that the way that their writing classes worked, you were one of 12 students with a published author as your professor, and you wrote all the time and got all this feedback on your writing. I was like, oh, that sounds way better than this. Cool. And that because it was a small school, I could study abroad, and I could have a job and not feel like I was going to get behind, because I'd be able to schedule all my classes easily. It wouldn't be so hard as it was at UCLA to even get a class. And it just seemed like
your mom for knowing, doing what we would do now, right? Like we would do that with our kids, but I don't think that was necessarily typical for a lot of our parents to take that initiative. And so that's cool she did that.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on it, because I wonder if I'm so glad how everything worked out, and it was the perfect place for me to go. But I wonder, as a mom now with an 18-year-old in New York City, and I'm on the other side of the country, and of course this has been a hard transition for her, I don't think that I would just call up a small little school right here and say, here's the easy out, like,
yes.
I don't think that I would actually do that. Yeah. I would definitely be more like, you should really reflect on what you really want and what a change like this might mean and where you would be happier. I'm not sure that it worked out well, and I'm glad how it worked out, but
no,
I don't think that's the approach I would take. Yeah.
That's a good point. No, it's a really good point. So it's great and sweet she did that, but was it appropriate? Probably go back and forth between, and what could you have made it through and what would have happened? But like you said,
maybe she missed you.
I think she did. She did. And I think she hoped if I came back to that area of Southern California that I would move back home. Yeah. And I never did. I never considered their home my home again after that. I was very determined to set up my own life and be a very independent person, and always pay my own rent and buy my own groceries. And I just, I think she hoped that it would bring me right back to where I was, and it did, and it didn't. Because
right.
I also, my brother went to Berkeley, and he lives 10 minutes from her now. He came back. A lot of people in that small town came back and live there and are raising their families there. I never wanted that. I never chose that. Even though I met my husband there, we didn't want to live there long term. So I think she did miss me, and I think it didn't really matter. I wasn't actually coming home. Yeah.
Did you live on your own when you got an apartment there? Or did you have a roommate?
My best friend and I moved in together.
Right, so that's what you said. Okay.
Her parents didn't have the financial ability to pay for everything. So she was taking on a lot of student loans, and at a private university, that was hard. And so it was a lot cheaper for her to get a 1-bedroom apartment with me, and we split the rent, and then to have the loans. But
did you guys kind of plan that? Like once you knew you were going, did you tell her and you're like, okay, let's do this. That's cool. You had a friend to do it with.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it worked out really well. It was a really great year. And we ended up actually rushing a sorority together. So even though we were off campus, we were very involved on the campus together. So it ended up being really great.
How big is it's University of Redlands, right?
Yeah. And I think it's about 4,000 students.
Okay. So it's like what was
now
where we went?
It's like the first year of UCLA, right? Or not even.
First class.
Oh, UCLA was 30,000 students, and so there were probably about 8,000 freshmen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where we went to school, what, 5,000?
So I think so.
It was around 5,000, so it's similar size.
Mm-hmm.
How far was UCLA from your hometown?
About 90 miles.
Okay.
But it's a totally different world. Yeah, because like I said, I grew up at the base of the San Bernardino Mountains. It's a much more rural area. We always kind of laughed that it was like you took a town in Texas and dropped it in Southern California because everybody drove big lifted trucks and Wranglers and chewed tobacco and
that's California. You get it all.
You get it all. It's all here. Anybody who thinks it's not, just come visit. We've got it all.
There. So how did you meet your husband?
So he was at Redlands, and it's pretty funny. We, my best friend and I decided to throw a St. Patrick's Day party, and we invited some friends that he came with, mutual friends. Actually, my mom's twin sister's daughter was at Redlands, and she was dating one of my husband's friends. And so we said, hey, Lindsay, bring your boyfriend and his friends. And so he came over to our apartment with a group of guys. And I, at the time, was very I don't even think dating is the right word, but I was interested in kind of starting to get to know one of his friends who was on the tennis team. And that guy was at the party. But Patrick was going through my CDs and changing the 5 discs in my CD player to change the music. And I got up in his face and who do you think you are? You can come to my apartment, come to my party and change the music. And we had playful banter. And my best friend always laughed. She's like, we could tell right away that you guys, there was something there. There was a spark. And so his name is Patrick. It was St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day will forever be a very special day in this house. The next day, I went to the other guy's tennis match, and Pat was sitting there in the stands watching the tennis match, and he and I were talking the entire time. And we got to discussing that he had never, he'd always wanted to get a tattoo, but he came from a very conservative family, and all of his friends were pretty conservative. And so it just didn't seem like it was ever going to happen. I was like, same, I really want a tattoo. And none of my friends would ever do that. But guess what? I've got a car right there. If you get in the car, I'll drive us somewhere. We can go get tattoos right now. And that was our first date, we got tattoos. Yeah.
Oh, wait, did you get matching tattoos?
No. Because I learned that at a very young age. As soon as you tattoo something associated with another person, it's like the fastest way to get them out of your life. So no, we did not.
So you don't have Pat on your arm.
No.
What did you get?
He got the Chinese symbol for good fortune, which for somebody who went into finance, getting good fortune was actually it ended up being a really good thing.
Yeah.
And I got an IV heart on my hip. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Very good. So after that, was that it? You guys were together after that?
So that was March of 1999. And then I went in August. I studied abroad for the next 4 months. So we dated for about 4 months, and then I left for 4 months.
Where did you go?
Salzburg, Austria. I lived in Salzburg, Austria.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what made you choose Austria?
Well, the University of Redlands has had a house in Austria for like, at this point, I think 50 something years. Like I think it had been 35 years at the time that I went. And I think it's been about 55 or 60 years at this point. And so it's right up on the Munksberg there. And then you study one thing independently that's related to your major. And then you study art history as a group. All 35 students do who live in the house together. You study German so that you can speak with the local people. And you study, and the head professor that lived in the house with his family was a psychology professor. So he did group therapy with us.
Wow. So cool.
And we would travel all over Europe while
Did you go to Vienna? I assume.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Of course. Yeah. And we did an Eastern European trip. We did an Italy trip. We were actually in Rome and had Thanksgiving dinner in Rome at the Four Seasons, and we got the papal blessing, and
cool.
we went to London and Paris and Barcelona, and I was in Switzerland on St. Nicholas Day. That was like this magical experience. Yeah.
That's cool.
I hope my girls choose to study abroad in college for at least a semester, because it was life changing for sure.
Did you go to Freud's house at all? The Freud Museum?
I do think we did, although more of the focus was on the Habsburgs and the museums related to the Habsburgs, and then also I want to say like the Bauhaus movement and the Klimt. I remember seeing a lot of Klimt, and I don't know that we went to Freud's house.
It's the one country I want to go to, actually, is Austria.
Oh, the Christmas markets are so amazing. And so when my children were in 2nd and 4th grade, I actually took my mother-in-law, and the four of us went and started in Vienna and went to Salzburg and Innsbruck and ended in Munich. And we went to Neuschwanstein Castle, which is like the Cinderella Castle also. And to this day, even though my girls were young, they've said like that was just the most magical experience they could have ever had. And I totally recommend it. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so was that for about 4 months you said you did that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how old were you?
So I was 20. So I was legal to drink there, but not legal to drink here.
That is amazing.
That was my husband's senior year and my junior year. Mm-hmm. So we broke up during that semester. And then we got back together after I got back, and we've been together ever since. Yeah.
Did you have any European boys over there during your?
You can't tell.
I was so heartbroken. No, I was beyond heartbroken. In fact, I started journal writing there. And when I look back and I read through those journals, it was just me like, you have to get over him. But he was the love of my life. I know it. Like, I don't know. I just knew from the beginning that he was one. Yeah.
You knew. So he graduated a year ahead of you then?
But even though I transferred, I ended up graduating a semester early. So he only graduated one semester before me. He graduated in June and I graduated in December.
Okay. And then you said you didn't stay there. So did you guys move in together and go somewhere else?
He went back to Sacramento after he graduated and got a job in finance up there. And then I chose to get a job back in the very early tech days, a voice over IP company working in marketing for a VoIP. And I got my own little apartment. What's that?
What company?
It was called Utopia. No, Itopia. It was called Itopia. Okay. And I was like, in college, I had done internships at 20th Century Fox and at NBC, but it was NBCI, and I was building web pages for their daytime television programming. And so I had enough web design and like computer, because it was really programming language at that point still to do that kind of stuff, that I got the job at the startup. But they folded 6 months later.
After you started there?
After I moved my life to Sacramento and got my own apartment, the company which a lot of tech companies in 2002 went belly up.
Yeah.
So then where did you go?
So then I decided to enter into the teacher internship program in Sacramento, where you can teach while you get your teaching degree. And I became a 4th grade teacher. And I was in, I think, my 4th day of teaching and 22 years old when 9/11 happened. And standing in front of these kids, I didn't actually have a degree. I had very little experience, and standing there, and this was the scariest thing could have happened in my life. I had no context for how to handle it. And that was something.
In 4th grade, they're old enough to ask pretty good questions and think about things.
Yeah, I had 43 4th graders, and they ranged from 8 years old through 11 yeyears old. And they were very, very, and there were about 30% of them were Hmong. About 30% of them were Hispanic immigrant families that lived in the area. The Hmong families also were mostly immigrant families, all working in the agricultural area surrounding Sacramento. And then I had about 30% of my kids were inner city Black kids, several of them homeless, unfortunately.
Jeez.
And so they all came from very different backgrounds than I did. And trying to connect with each of them and communicate with their parents about what was going on in the classroom when I was just a kid.
Yeah.
By the time your day started, we were probably 3-4 hours into the 9/11 event.
Yeah, because we were over in Jersey. Yeah.
So I actually had been raised in a house where my parents had the news on when you got ready in the morning. So that as I became an adult, I did the same thing. And I watched on the news the plane go in, and I immediately got in my car and drove to school. And I was the first one on campus when my principal arrived. And I said, what are we supposed to do about what just happened in New York? And she hadn't seen it. She didn't have any idea what had happened.
Oh, wow.
So she actually started calling the district and trying to figure out how we were supposed to respond. And I'll never forget that day.
Did you guys address it in that day to your students? Was it addressed?
Yeah. It was very fly by the seat of my pants. I wasn't given any direct message of what to say or what to do. The day was probably the whole week actually was just, the rest of the week was just kind of shot. We had another teacher on our staff who had gone to Virginia for her sister's wedding and couldn't come back because of the no flying. And
the world stopped for a while for all of us.
I think our schools all closed.
Our schools closed. The kids didn't go to school for the rest of that week. We were in a 50-mile radius of Manhattan at the time.
Yeah. So. Oh, wow. Yeah, of course they closed. That makes sense.
Yeah, they closed. Yeah. Well, and Brian actually was supposed to be there that day, but he rescheduled his meeting with Lego to September 12th, or he would have been arriving into the bottom.
Procrastination paid off.
Yeah. Which tower would you have arrived in? Tower 1 or 2?
I don't know. Wherever the path was.
Yeah, he would have been.
I don't even know.
So he would have been arriving when it all was happening. So we all,
and then crazy.
It's crazy. And then a day, 24 hours later, you were with a team that went in to help set up on the pier DNA centers, because at the time they were still hoping for survivors. And so he helped set up the the network for that. And
they set up it was Pier 94, and it was a big pier. It's like a warehouse, and they brought in curtain partitions and set up little temporary cubicles, and we set up all the phones and computer systems, the network systems, so people could come in with their toothbrush or brush or whatever and do interviews and type all the information in and stuff like that. But it was pretty wild.
Unfortunately, there weren't. It didn't go the way out. For our area, it was especially traumatic. It felt like the whole New Jersey, New York, the whole tri-state area felt like one big small town had just been attacked. So I was always curious how the West Coast, if you guys felt it as much as we did.
I think I do believe in San Francisco, schools were closed because there was a belief that there might be a target of the Golden Gate Bridge or some buildings in the San Francisco financial district. But the rest of California, as I understand it, really just stayed on schedule. Kids in school was safer than kids not in school because parents were working. Everything was still, functioning in the world around us.
Did you guys have the whole September 12th phenomenon where everyone had American flags out? There was a lot of patriotism, a lot of unity.
I do remember a lot of patriotism in the weeks and months and years that followed, but I don't remember really there being a lot of flags right where I was. But my husband and I at the time lived in a little apartment, and I think it was just a different experience. Probably people who lived in more suburban areas than we did. We were more inner city of Sacramento, which isn't the same kind of inner city as, New York or LA, but still, we were surrounded by people who were very kind of in a transient stage of life, and
that really makes sense. That makes sense. So did you continue teaching, or did that scare you and you were done?
I finished that year. I had every intention to continue teaching, but for anybody familiar with finance, Sacramento is not the hub of finance in this world. And so my husband really quickly started to see that there was going to be a pretty low threshold for how far his career could go in Sacramento. And, we were still young. And so he started looking for options elsewhere. And when he got an opportunity at a really good up and coming firm in Pasadena, he took it. And I hadn't finished my teaching credential at that point, even though I had been getting it for a year while teaching. And so the state of California doesn't like you to do that credential at multiple schools. You do it at one school and get the degree from that school. And so when I said I wanted to move to Southern California, they said, well, then you either need to stay here for another year and finish it, or you need to start all over again down there. And I had never intended to be a teacher in the first place. So when we got to Pasadena, there were a lot more opportunities in marketing. And I went back to marketing and advertising.
Were you guys married at that point?
Yeah. So we got engaged in July of 2001. And then 9/11 happened in September, and we got married in March of 2002.
Okay. Yeah. And so then now you're in Pasadena, you're married. And
so, I found a career in nonprofit marketing and advertising. So all my clients were like World Vision, Best Friends Animal Sanctuary, Operation Smile. And I loved it. It was all about telling stories that saved lives. When the tsunami hit, we for 72 hours straight just never went home and just kept working and raised, $50 million in 72 hours or whatever.
Wow.
And so I really love that. And so we were married for 5 years before we bought our first home and our oldest daughter was born. Yeah. Okay. And that's what I did for those 5 years. Yeah.
So when you became a mother, did you continue working or did you become a stay-at-home mom?
I always thought that I would because I loved my career. I thought I'm going to absolutely go back. And then we were at a place financially where after, as we got 5 weeks into my maternity leave, and I had lined up options for childcare and everything. And we saw how much that was going to cost and what my salary was. And it just made sense that I could stay home. So I was like, okay, I will stay home for right now. And I decided to sort of take a leave. And I worked for a company that was very supportive of like, don't worry, you can come back whenever you want to come back. And so on her first birthday, I started consulting again, just doing part-time work from home. But I got pregnant with my other daughter basically at her first birthday. And she was born, 21 months apart. Our girls are 21 months apart. And so then that pretty much put an end to that. I really wasn't doing much consulting work after that when I had two babies at home.
Yes, absolutely.
So then the plan was, well, when they're both in school full time, then I'll go back to work. And I actually was set up to do that and accepted a job. And then my niece, my oldest sister, has 4 daughters, and her second daughter was having a lot of problems. She was a freshman in high school, and they asked if she could come live with us. And
She's the one that's in Minnesota, right? Okay.
yeah. So this is one little aspect of, the people pleaser, the good kid, my family from a very, very early age, and like probably when I was 17, 18 years old, started making the joke that WWJD meant what would Jamie do? And everything fell to me from about that stage, 17, 18, to figure it out. So
wow.
Everybody would turn to me, and I only really have started to fully embrace and understand this as I've unpacked it in the last 10 years. Because so the oldest sister, who's 14 years older than I am, literally 1 week into starting another job for the first time, leaves her 14-year-old daughter to live with us. And so I quit that job. And
how long had you been working at the new job before that happened?
Like a week.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a nonprofit. This was a brand new company.
I actually accepted a position at our girls were doing preschool and first grade at a Christian school in Pasadena. And so I accepted a job at that school since I had some teaching experience and everything. And I was like, I can have the same hours as them and everything. But then I had to resign immediately to take care of my niece who was having issues and do homeschool with her.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because she would have been going into high school, but she had to be homeschooled. So now you're homeschooling.
It's extremely generous, and that's just wonderful, really, that you would do that.
So looking back,
Yeah,
looking back, I'm really glad that we did try to help, that my husband was willing. And so she lived with us for 99 days. We joke it's like a rap song, 99 days in Pasadena, but she was definitely not making progress because the issues that she had, especially the psychological issues she had, were very much with her parents and were things that they needed to work out together. Everything was just on pause while she lived with us. So, we would have little issues, but for the most part, she was just, buying her time. We had a good relationship. She was fine. She was just buying her time. And it became obvious that it wasn't making the impact that it needed to make. We had her in therapy twice a week, and the therapist was like, we're not making any breakthroughs here because we're missing half of the situation that needs to be addressed. So she went home.
Bring her to Jaime, and Jaime, you fix her, and then you send her back repaired. But we're not going to participate.
That was exactly how. It was. Yeah. So she went back, and I got our house sort of back to a level of normal again, and was ready to start working again the next year, school year that started.
Okay. So they said, we still want you. Come work for us.
They said, you're great. We love you. Yes. Okay. You're a great family. We'll give you another job. So that was 2014. I accepted a job. I started it in August. And the day before Labor Day, we found out the people we were renting a house from, we had outgrown the house we had bought. So we were renting that house out to somebody else and renting a house because we couldn't financially buy a bigger house at that time. And so we were sort of renting, and the people we were renting from, even though we had another 2 years on our lease, they said that the owner had terminal cancer. He wanted to liquidate all of his properties. So we either needed to buy the property or just move out. And so at that point, we were paying 2 private school tuitions. And Pasadena is a wonderful city. It's very pretty, but it is like 100 private schools and really terrible public schools. And so we had been spending all of our free time whenever we could get a chance going to Seal Beach. And it's about a 35-minute drive from Pasadena, just in the northernmost part of Orange County, right across from Long Beach in the southern part of LA County. And we knew that they had the best public schools and you could live at the beach. And they actually had affordable houses too, because Pasadena did not have affordable houses. There was these bidding wars happening at that point, and we were getting outbid. But we made the decision, and so again, I started in August, and by middle of September, we decided we were going to move. And so I had to resign again. And then that point, we thought, okay, this is chaotic, but we're going to make it work. It's going to be okay. And we're going to get the kids settled into public school there. And that's a good situation. Like, we can afford to make all this work.
Yeah.
And then we were due to move November 1st. October 15th, my mom's mom, I got a call that she was at the end of her life. Could I go there? I was holding her hand on October 15th as she took her last breath. And so, like, okay, I'm 2 weeks from moving and I just lost my grandma. This is heartbreaking. And then October 30th, I was sitting at the new house. They had just finished the termites had come off, and they were turning on the gas, and I had to be there for that. I had just enrolled the kids in the new school, and my cell phone rings, and my husband on the other end, I could hear his voice shaking, and he said, "My dad just died." And it was a complete shock, because I told you he was such an integral part of that community, and his dad had not been sick. It was just a massive, like, his heart just gave up, just completely stopped. And so he was 77 years old. Yeah, 77.
That's still young. That's still young. Yeah. I know to younger kids, like anyone younger than us thinks that's old, but that's actually not old, especially if you're active and you're still vibrant and involved in life. There's still a lot of life left to live.
Teacher.
Yeah, and he was
a science teacher. He taught community college Spanish. He even though he was retired, he was still going into my brother-in-law's classroom. My brother-in-law is a math teacher at the high school. He was helping those kids. My brother-in-law was the girls' basketball coach. He was helping with that because he had always been a coach of basketball. He was Special Olympics coach for swimming and basketball. They were very involved in their church. He was in every part of that community, constantly active, an incredible man. And
how long had they been married?
50 years. They were married 50 years that year when he passed away.
Were you also close to him? Was he a wonderful father-in-law?
Well, he was such a wonderful father-in-law. And it was one of those experiences so Pat couldn't be there when we moved. He had to fly and help his mom plan the funeral. So he came and signed the final papers at escrow. And then I took him and dropped him off at the airport. And I had to go get our kids and tell them that Grandpa died and Dad was going to be gone for a few days. And then a week after moving, so the kids started. So Halloween was a Friday. We moved Saturday. Kids started school Monday. And then Friday, I had to pull them out at noon so that we could drive to Northern California for the funeral on Saturday. And my grandma had just died and we had just moved. And I was sitting there. I will never forget. I refused to put the dirt down at the graveside because I was like, I can't physically make myself do this. I'm not ready for him to not be in our life. Like that's like an acceptance, and I can't accept that right now. Like, it took a while. It was really, really shocking.
It's it's an absolute shock. My dad died in a car accident, and I say the first year I wasn't even absorbing anything of that what had happened. It really was the second year. I always tell people when it's shocking like that, sometimes the second year is harder than the first year, because the first year you're just kind of just like, what just happened, and then the second year is when, oh, this is reality. This is how it is, and it's rough. So, and was it just your husband and brother? Or did they have other siblings?
They have a sister who's between them. So my husband was sort of the unexpected third child. So his siblings are 10 and 8 years older than him. Yeah. And he was a bonus. Right before his mom turned 40.
We have a bonus. So we have a 15, we have a 28, a 20, almost 25, and a 15. So
Yeah.
they're the best.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they get parented by everyone, the
they
whole
have the most
family.
parents in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my husband for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So man, so
So
you're just like life is just spinning.
life is spinning. We have very little to no support in our new community.
Yeah.
We hadn't found a church yet or anything, and so trying to get my bearings, trying to meet people, trying to get the kids into extracurricular activities, and then So being as young as I was when all the parents were remarried, that meant that I really had 8 grandparents growing up. So
Yeah.
my step grandparents were very involved in my life, because I was this little baby that just showed up in their life, right?
Yeah.
So my stepmom's mother had been a very important part of my life growing up. She lived in Orange County also, and so I got to see her pretty regularly. I mean, as regularly as I saw my dad and my stepmom. Whenever I saw them, it was a holiday, and Grandma Vera was there too.
Yeah.
And then as I became an adult and she was, a widow living by herself, I would take my kids to go visit her, to go take her to the pharmacy and do some grocery shopping, go out to lunch with her.
Yeah.
So when we moved to Orange County from Pasadena, that made that even easier. And we didn't have much in our community. So I started doing that once or twice a week, taking my kids there.
Yeah.
Well, then January of 2015, so we're talking
Just a few
3
months.
months later,
Yeah.
she goes on hospice and passes away. So we lost 3 people in the first 3 months at the same time that we moved. And that really was the beginning of 6 years of this. It was just loss after loss after loss, because I told you my sister Christina died at age 50 of ALS. Well, she was diagnosed at 43. So for 7 years, she had the slow decline, and she lived in Orange County. So part of moving to Orange County was that I could be there closer to help her. And she had 3 kids. So, as her husband was working and she was no longer able to drive, I would go pick them up and take them on driving lessons, or I would, do whatever I could to help.
Yeah.
So she passed away in 2019. Well, my biological father had another stroke in 2011, I think. 2011, he had a stroke when he was working part-time, or he was living in upstate Pennsylvania, and he had a stroke. And then so he ended up moving back to Southern California. His wife had stayed in Southern California the whole time, and he would just sort of fly back and forth. And so then he came back. He eventually came back, and he started, his body just quickly started shutting down. And so in 2015, so we moved 2014, September 2015, my dad was hospitalized, and for 4 months he was in the hospital less than a mile from my house. And so every single day I was taking my kids to school, and then I'd go to the hospital and my stepmom would have me there talking to the nurses and doctors and dealing. And then he passed away in January of 2016. And all of this at the same time, my stepfather had Parkinson's. He and his daughter, she was diagnosed with ALS the exact same year that he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So now that's all happening. And my mom is dealing with my stepdad who has Parkinson's. And so then as he would be hospitalized after my dad died, then it was, okay, now we need you to come deal with these doctors and at this hospital and help with these surgeries and help us
with your sister too. So you were so that.
Plus you got 2 girls.
Well, yeah,
I've got 2 little kids. I mean, when we moved, they were in kindergarten and 2nd grade. So yeah, they were little, and I would get them to school. I would go deal with the hospital. I would come back and get them to swim lessons, and then we'd make dinner, and then we'd do homework, and I'd get them to bed, and then we'd get up the next morning and I'd go do it all again. And then then I'd be a room mom at the same time, and I'd be on the PTA, and all of this is happening from 2014 through 2020. My stepdad passed away January of 2020, and then the world shut down in March of 2020. Exactly. Those 6 years, that's what my life looked like. It was being a mom to little kids and running around like a chicken with my head cut off, helping with whoever was sick and needing help with doctors and whatever for 6 years until they died, and then planning the funeral and then going on to the next one. It was
the overhead of life in general for your own self.
Well,
which you probably don't even consider part of the mix, but it's happening either way, right?
Well, when you're in that state, yourself gets put way back. I mean, you were sandwich generation on steroids. Like regular Gen Xers are like, I'm still raising my last one or my last two, and I have to take care of my mom. You were like in the heart of raising your children, both of them, and it never ended. It never ended of having to care for someone.
No. And the oldest sister, remember, was in Minnesota. So she was not engaged. She would come home for a funeral and then go back. And the second oldest was sick. And so she couldn't help. And then there was my brother, who never really connected and always felt a bit like the black sheep and kind of on the outside. So he was no help either. I think the 4 months that our dad was in the hospital, he visited him one time. I mean, one time in those 4 months. So it really was, what would Jaime do? Jaime's going to fix this. Jaime's going to talk to the doctors. Jaime's going to tell us when hospice is necessary. Jaime's going to tell us how to handle this.
Yeah, it fell on you because you have two siblings who are kind of no contact, estranged from their parents. One is sick, and then you. And you've been the people pleaser. You've been the high achiever. You're the one that is, I always say the most compliant children are the ones you have to worry about the most. They're the ones that are struggling because everyone's like, oh, they're fine. They're fine. Don't worry about them.
Yeah, nobody's checking in on them. Nobody at all.
That's why actually sometimes people are shocked because unfortunately when these high achieving teenagers kill themselves and people are like, they had everything, you know, they seem perfect and they're literally like dying inside. And so I'm always like, you gotta check in on those kids because you can't assume they're okay. Like the ones that are the trouble, they're in their head. Yeah, you have to. So for you, I assume like Jaime was put completely, like Jaime didn't exist, and you were just in what's it called, autopilot and grinding.
Yeah. I've been really lucky throughout all of this. My husband's number one goal was always to do what he could to help me. So he was always like, okay, what do you need from me? Even though he was working 80 hours a week in a finance job, he was like, what can I do for you? Do you want weekly massages? You want a gym membership? What can I do? How can I help? So he was like, I will have housekeepers to help clean the house while you're dealing with this, you know? So I had one person who was always looking out for me, but getting me to a place where I could actually prioritize myself and really put my needs. All these other emergencies had to stop. And really, it wasn't until July of 2020 when the whole world had been shut down and it didn't look like there was really any upswing coming anytime soon.
Yeah.
That everybody I couldn't go be anywhere anymore. And everybody had kind of died at that point that we expected to die. And so I finally started, that July, I decided to do watercolor and I started to paint. I had never been an artist really before. I had always been kind of crafty. I'd been creative. I'd been a DIYer. You know, my dad was a contractor, so I have the tools in the house. I can put things together and fix things or whatever. But I started to create again for the first time in more than a decade. I just had not created anything. As somebody who's a writer, I'm a creative person in that regard. And I started painting watercolor and I started to feel that release of all that tension and stress. I started to feel my breath come back to a normal state by just sitting there and meditatively painting watercolor and focusing on something beautiful and not focusing on any of the chaos around me. It was like I could breathe again. It was amazing. It was so wonderful.
And you honored yourself and you allowed yourself to kind of re-enter your body and be present.
Yes, exactly.
And I think it's amazing you just quote unquote picked up watercolor. Speaking as someone who's not, I do write, but I'm not artistic at all. You're not artistic and none of our kids are. So we're not an artistic family. So the idea of just being able to pick up watercolor sounds so foreign to me. So you have to have some I mean, did you not draw anything growing up? Did you not know you could do this?
I was a doodler,
Okay.
and I was, like when the girls were little, they would be coloring and I would be writing them a children's book and like sketching little
Okay.
things, like little
Okay.
illustrations for it. Um, but I mentioned my grandma had a master's in fine art from Cornell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mom's twin sister is an English teacher, but she was also an artist for a very long time, like in galleries and things. And even my oldest stepsister was an artist in her throughout her 20s. She actually she was like the career college student. She went to college for like 10 years, and one of her degrees was in art.
Yeah.
And so I had art around me all the
Yeah.
time, and I just never considered myself an artist because I hadn't taken art classes. I took an arts and crafts class my senior year when I ran out of classes to take, and I had to be on campus for periods. And
Yeah.
so I just didn't consider myself artistic. I was just always crafty. And then, once I sat down and started doing these tutorials online, these free tutorials on YouTube,
That's
I did it once every 2 weeks, and then I did it once a week, and then I started painting once a day, and then I was painting several hours every day. I set up a desk in the garage, and I was bringing joy to my family because I was lighter and more relaxed, and I started putting my art just all over the walls for something colorful to look at during COVID when we couldn't leave the house.
Yeah.
And by January of 2021, that creative spark reignited my desire to write again. And by May of 2021, I had applied to grad school. I ended up going and getting my master's online over the next 15 months. And
Wow.
by the end of that 15 months, I had written the first 10,000 words of the novel that I published earlier this year.
It's amazing.
It took sitting down and giving myself permission to do something that I loved again, just like way back when I left UCLA and I said, I'm done living for somebody else. I need to do this for me. I finally did it again. It just took, 20 years to get back there.
COVID was probably pretty good for you then, because it stopped the world, especially right in Southern California.
Yes.
Florida, we joke that COVID never happened because we're back in, but you guys kind of shut down. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I just think, first of all, in general, women, we don't give ourselves permission to be present for just us, to selfishly be present for us, to find out what do we like, what are our outlets. So it's already hard enough under normal circumstances to do what you did. But then coming off of this tornado of grief and trauma and sickness and death, spiritually had to have completely just been such a struggle, emotionally, mentally, just everything, physically for sure. I mean, did you get an autoimmune disease during all this? Because that's a recipe for an autoimmune disease.
I didn't. So I did have the support of my husband and the insight to seek out a very good psychologist. And I did a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy and even some EMDR, and really worked through a lot of it. And that's where I started to understand and recognize some of the habits that were formed in my family around putting things on me. So I mentioned my stepdad was passed away in January of 2020. Well, my mom is then a widow during COVID, locked in her house by herself, and she is sinking deeper and deeper into alcoholism because of her loneliness and isolation. And she ended up getting scammed out of pretty much all of their retirement savings. We're talking $650,000 taken from her before we discovered it. And when we discovered it and we intervened, and because we had no reason to believe that any of this was going on, there was no reason. Her twin sister was aware that she was on her phone all the time, that people were constantly, but she didn't alert any of us. My brother only discovered it when they were on a trip in Alaska they had arrived, and he heard my mom's phone going off constantly. He's like, who are you talking to? What is going on? And before they did a drive where they wouldn't have access, she said, I need to go to a notary. I have to sign something at a notary right now. And he's like, what? We're in Alaska. Why do you need to go to a notary? She's like, oh, it's nothing big. Don't worry. And he's like, give me your phone. And he started to see what was happening. And it was one of her last remaining accounts that she was trying to shut down and hand over all the money to somebody who was scamming it. It was everything was on the news. It was, I'm on an oil rig. I can't access my money. I love you so much. We're going to be together forever. Yeah. It was the whole romance campaign.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, right? I feel like I saw that on social media, like people were talking
There's
about
mills in Indonesia that are doing this.
Yeah.
It was even the picture that they were circulating the picture on the news of this former military guy that they were using his picture. And that was the same picture. I mean, and she watches the news and she fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And then, so when we intervened and we got her to get sober, and we started to discuss that somebody needed to be put in charge of her finances, she admitted, she's like, well, that's Jaime. And I'm like, what? And that's when I got to look at the trust and see that when I was 17, turning 18 years old, that summer after I graduated high school in 1997, my mom and my stepdad went to Tahiti for 2 weeks. And right before they left, they made their living trust. And even though I was 18 and I had a sister that was 32, a sister that was 28, and a brother that was 22, they named me as the one who needed to be in charge. And that's what I had to unpack during COVID when I was in those therapy sessions. I had to unpack, like, why was I always the go-to of dump it on Jaime? If the shit hits the fan, it's Jaime's problem to deal with. As soon as I was an adult, it started. And I had to really, like, when I started to really unpack that and started painting watercolor and started taking time back for myself, I had to start establishing boundaries around how I could possibly handle moving forward. Yeah. Now with 2 widowed moms and a widowed mother-in-law and 2 teenage daughters, like young, they were preteens at that point. And it really, to this day, is something that I still, on a daily basis, before I got on this call with you, I was with my stepmom because she has cancer and we're going through her paperwork with City of Hope and trying to figure out the care and I still am struggling on a daily basis to figure out how to balance this relationship of caring for my kids, caring for these aging parents, and finding time for myself, because it feels impossible some days.
I think it's 100% the greatest challenge, or one of the greatest challenge for women, but especially Gen X women right now, because we are right there. What you're talking about, we are right there. Your situation is very extreme of what a lot of Gen X women deal with. But I always say boundaries are self-care, but we were never ever allowed to have a boundary. I mean, if we even thought of it, people were offended. If we even wanted to reclaim anything for ourselves, like, it was expected for us to be selfless. It was expected of us to give and to not think of ourselves. And so to even try to claim boundaries now could also still trigger people close to us, because when you set boundaries, the people that have been crossing them, they don't like that.
Yep.
It can trigger a whole bunch of stuff, and then you have to deal with that. You know.
Did you get to any answers? Because everything you just said, there were other children in the mix, but they chose Jaime to be the one to do it all, right? Did you find any answers or discover anything in
as to why they chose her?
Yeah.
Really, my mom's explanation to me, because my stepdad was already gone, was just that at that point when I was going to go to UCLA and I was going to be a lawyer or a doctor, they just saw me as the greatest promise of all 4 kids, of the most likely to succeed, the most likely to figure it all out for them, the most trustworthy of the 4 to handle it. Yeah.
But you had always been that, though. She had always been that. Like, she'd been the good girl. She had been the pleaser. And so that
And
was her role.
the older two had little babies at that point. So my oldest sister, my first niece was born when I was a senior in high school, and my other sister, her first was born when I was a freshman in college. So it was at that point that they were starting to have their babies. And my parents, I think, also said, well, they're going to have too much on their plate if something happens. They've got babies to deal with. So Jaime doesn't. Jaime can deal with this.
But then even when you did have babies, it was still Jaime can deal with it. Yeah, it was you were
Christina was sick.
You were always in your role. You were put in the role, and it was just expected of you. And so it's amazing that you had the wherewithal to go to therapy during all this. And of course, that you have such a supportive husband. That's huge. Yeah. But just the fact that you were able to, because what you did and are doing is healing yourself. The fact that you started this healing journey, you saved yourself, because I'm sure you were drowning.
Oh, yeah. And some days those boundaries that I've set are immediately jumped over. They dive right into my life, and I have to recognize when old habits are popping in, and I'm just fixing things, and I need to no. We're gonna pull those boundaries back again. It's a daily challenge, because this was only in the last 5 years that I've really learned to do this, and life didn't stop being hard. I mean, my stepdad passed away in January of 2020. Well, my mother-in-law had a stroke this past October, and she passed away in January. My stepmom's cancer has just been discovered. My mom's twin sister has cancer. And so she's, my mom's really emotional about all of that. And my mom had no money to keep paying. She was in a 4,000 square foot house on 5 acres, and she didn't have money to pay those bills. Her Social Security certainly wasn't doing it. So my husband and I were covering the difference until she agreed to move. And I've been managing her finances for 5 years now, and really making them last as long as possible. And really, I have to, on a daily basis, discuss with her budgets and how to not spend money willy-nilly, because for so long, my stepdad owned his own business. They had plenty of money. It was never an issue. And so she never developed those habits of being fiscally responsible. Even though my husband has a successful career and we have plenty of money, he was raised in farm country in Northern California with, a teacher and a librarian. He always was fiscally responsible. And that's the household that we've lived in for our whole marriage for 23 years, is being fiscally responsible. Yeah. And so my relationship with my mom at this point is really contentious. I loved her and had such a close relationship that I named my daughter after her. And now she's in early stages of dementia, all that drinking plus family history. She's really, starting to decline. And it's like having a teenager in a lot of ways. Her impulsivity and irresponsible choices that she makes. Thank God she's still sober, but I'm not going to kid myself that that's necessarily going to always be the case, because I don't live with her. She refused to move here because her twin sister is dying, and so she wants to be close to her. And so, they're out where I grew up, so about 75 miles from here, which is just far enough.
Yeah, but you're having to manage her she is far enough where she can get herself into some trouble.
Yes. I worry about her with driving. When I happen to be driving on the same street with her, and I see her driving and she does something that I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
You almost got killed just now. What are you doing?
What are you talking about?
Yeah. So she's there, and she lives alone?
She does, and she lives in a retirement community, but in her own home. My brother is all of 10 miles from her, and he has not taken the responsibility. And
so it's still, like you said, life didn't get any easier. You're still in it. That you're still in it. The ocean of it. It's just that in the midst of the storm, with your husband's help throwing you that lifeline of just, I'm here. But invariably it's up to you to truly save yourself and to set those boundaries. And And boundary setting, I tell my daughter this especially because I try to, everything I've learned, I'm like, I want you to know this much earlier. And she's almost 25.
Mhm.
Boundary setting is a skill that just like
Yes.
exercise, just like, all the things we have to work on. It's not something like, oh, I set boundaries. Now they're set. Everything's fine. It's something like you said, daily has to be
Yep.
reset, reset,
Yep.
reset, especially when it's midlife. Like you're not quite midlife like I am, but when it happens, when you've lived your whole life with no boundaries, it's really creating a whole new life for yourself. So it's a whole new playing field, and it has to be acknowledged every single day, or else you get lost in the ocean again.
Yeah, yeah. So exactly. So my stepmom really leaned in 2015 to me helping with my dad in the hospital every day, and she didn't have to really accept the responsibility of understanding all the doctor stuff. And now that she's sick and by herself, she's like, "No, Jamie, come on, you this is your job. You need to." And so I've really had to be like, "Okay, let's be really clear here. Let's talk about how I can be most helpful in and still keep up my responsibilities because I have a life. I'm marketing a book. I'm visiting my daughter in New York City. I'm a mom to my 16-year-old who's here in the house and a junior in high school. I'm not doing this on a daily basis with you. I love you very much. I care very much about your, hopefully ability to heal and put this behind you. But we need to have really clear understanding of how I'm going to help. And yeah, every day that those conversations come up, and she can be very emotionally manipulative. My mom can be very emotionally manipulative, just sobbing because I'm an empath. As I said, I was always that bleeding heart liberal.
Yeah.
And they definitely, but Jamie, you're the one who understands this, and crying.
Yes.
I need you.
Yes.
I can't deal with this without you. Yeah.
I have a whole thing about empathy because I'm also an empath, and I learned for myself that I have to save my empathy for certain situations and certain people in my life, probably meaning my children and my husband and my mom. She lives with me, and my dogs. But going through life feeling empathy for everyone and every situation, I learned completely drained my energy, my soul. It caused so much internal stress because I wasn't holding any emotional boundaries for myself, because I was literally going through everyone's life experience with them and carrying the baggage of what they were going through along with what I was going through. So with each person, I took okay, now I'm going to take your emotional. I'm feeling everything they're feeling. So what I learned to do in order to save myself was I lean on sympathy, where you can go through it with someone, and compassion. But I've had to really recognize, okay, you're falling into their experience too much. This is their experience. This is not your experience. You got to pull yourself back, or you're going to be drained like you used to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I heard you say that in a recent episode. I think that was maybe your Charlie Kirk episode. That absolutely resonated with me. I also, though, I don't know if this resonates with you, but being a child through all of this trauma my whole life, I am naturally very calm and level-headed in the midst of chaos. And so somebody like my stepmom wants me to be there because I don't look like an empath in that situation. I'm not crying with her. She'll be a crying mess. And I am very focused on and clear-headed and figuring it out and solving the problem, because that is what I was trained to do my whole life for survival in this weird situation that I was raised in, right?
Yeah.
And so it's much more the emotional toll after the adrenaline goes away, and like even when the girls were little and the kids were put in bed, and then I would just like break down, like, and that's what my husband would, be there for me for. And so learning to breathe through it and to not be in that chaos all the time, but to really separate myself from it as much as I can. So like, how about I help you, to my stepmom, with the portal from my own house? I can log in and I can look at things and figure some things out, but I don't need to be right there with you. Like you don't need me present for that. Really trying to set boundaries literally around the amount of time that I am in the chaos is the best way that I actually help that sort of emotional empath side of me, because during the middle of it, I'm not in their experience at all, and I don't think I would have survived my childhood if I was in the experience of these parents who are screaming at each other on the side of a freeway as they change cars on Christmas Day from one to the, like I couldn't be in the, I literally would just shut down and go to sleep in the car, and like I would just go to sleep to turn it all off. As I
disconnect.
So much of that. Yeah. And so that's I agree with the sympathy. And yet at the same time, I think there's still an emotional toll no matter what, just on how the adrenaline of the chaos.
For sure. But you just nailed it, because it's funny you said that, because I'm great under pressure. Like if someone's hurt, like if we're talking emergency situation, when I'm the most calm. Because you disconnect emotionally. Yeah. And in fact, and this isn't an emergency situation, but last Thanksgiving or 2 Thanksgivings ago, I was making one of those sweet potato casseroles and I had marshmallows on top and I forgot about it. I put the broil on just to brown it. But of course, as a lot of us in the kitchen, we're doing I always say the last 30 minutes before you put everything on the table is one of the top 5 most stressful moments of everyone's life ever. And unless you've done that, you don't understand. So it was one of those. In the oven, we open it up and it's on fire. And Brian's like running around like a chicken with his head cut off, like, oh, and I was like, no, but you were. And I just was like, oh, it's on fire. And I shut it. And then he's kind of like, well, what do we do? And I'm like, no, it'll just, because it doesn't get air, it'll just
turn off the oven. Cut the oxygen off.
And then everyone's like, and I hope.
I'll admit, I was impressed because I'm usually the calm one too. But that one threw me off. I didn't like, what the hell do we do here?
Those emergency situations, but it's because we grew up disconnecting in the chaos. So we actually go into that mode and we're like, okay, I know how to do this. My humanity switches off. I'm just going to go right into, going through the motions. But, and what you said about losing it after. Yes, that's so right on. That, I've cried alone in a bathroom so many times. I can't even tell you. So many times sitting on the floor, leaning against the door, sobbing. Yeah.
Once you can breathe.
Yeah. Once you can breathe. I'm sorry. You're going to say something.
I think the word you said that stood out to me is you've trained for this, meaning that chaos. I've been training for this. It's my time to shine, in a sense.
Yeah. When that happens. And
you've been training since you were 2.
She knows
1
what
or
to
2.
do.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm just so impressed that everything that you had going on, that you still were able to start watercoloring and just take that step for yourself. It's so impressive, and that you honored yourself in that moment. And I'm sure therapy did help, but still you had to do it. You had to take that step.
I don't know if the perfect storm could have existed in any other way, because you're right. In Southern California, everything shut down. California was like, you are locked down. And so for the first time in my husband's career, never before that could somebody who worked in finance work from home. That did not happen, because the proprietary information, like the client could never even take it on a zip drive. They had computers at work that stayed at work and nothing came home with you. And so he would stay at work for 15 hours rather than come home, right? And then suddenly, March 13th, now you're working in our bedroom 20 hours a day, and our kids are in their bedrooms.
Yeah.
And I'm not driving people all around. And we had no idea, but at Christmas time, we bought a brand new puppy that came home March 7th.
Oh boy.
So we ended up with a pandemic puppy without knowing we were having a pandemic puppy. So he was like yappy and needed to be dealt with to keep them able to do all their Zoom calls and everything. So
Oh my God.
I was walking 7 miles a day with him, listening to podcasts, and I was exhausted. I was so drained and exhausted from these 6 years of loss. And now the world is literally like, there were all the BLM protests, and there were fires happening all over the country, and people had lost their minds.
Yeah,
and so
totally.
I think that it was a total salvation, like a self-preservation mechanism of mine to click on that. Let's sit in the garage and paint watercolor, because I need to survive. And nothing in the rest of the world is telling me that that's possible, but I can do this right now, and it's going to be okay. And my puppy can be at my feet, and it's nobody's going to be bothered, and it's going to be okay. It was total self-preservation.
Peace out. Mom's going to be in the garage. Just let me do my thing. But can we just take a moment, because how old were you during all this from 2014 to 2020? How old were you?
2014, I was 36. Is that right? 35.
Okay, so 35 to 40, right? 40, 41.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were right.
I'm 46 now. So in the last 5 years, since 41 is when I've really changed and like started setting boundaries and got my master's and all the things. Yeah.
Okay, which is amazing. But also there is definitely you could have been starting some perimenopause stuff during that time too, because perimenopause can hit around 37, and its average is early 40s. And that's when women start having all this other stuff going on, and half the time they don't even know why. Like, having trouble sleep, anxiety, depression, like putting on weight, all these different things. You could have been having some hormonal stuff going on too, but so much was going on, you probably wouldn't have even recognized it at the time.
It's possible. I also, though, have had an IUD for like 15 years. So that has helped with a lot of the perimenopause. I don't have really any of those symptoms, because that small amount of hormones that come through the IUD have really helped. I don't suffer yet. I hope I won't.
That's huge, because I think about everything you were going through. So that's another tool that probably helped, was that you had quote unquote hormone replacement therapy without even getting hormone replacement therapy. Like you had that helping you, thank God, because that would have been like, that would have been, crazy if you were also dealing with that too. But so now, are the watercolors behind you? Did you do those?
Oh yeah, those were really early ones. I like to have them sort of as a reminder, because, as I said, I started in July of 2020, and those were all tutorials that I was doing. By January of 2021, I had painted, this is my dog, Blondie. I had painted this portrait of her. I was doing my own compositions, and my Mother's Day of 2021, I did this rose that's covered, and I wanted to learn how to paint a water drop, and that is covered in like thousands of water drops. So I spent my Mother's Day sitting there painting thousands of water drops on this giant rose. So I like to keep those to remind myself that, like, where there's a will, you can figure out the way. Like if you want to learn, you'll be able to do it. And so those were early, but transformative in my creating my artistic style, and believing that no matter how many hours it would take, I could figure it out and do it. And
I mean, if that's the beginner,
this is about 6 months into my journey.
This is Jaime.
Yeah, I know. No, but exactly. But for those that are listening, she's got some of her watercolors behind her. If you watch on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. But I can see the droplets actually on the rose.
Did you do the cover of your book too?
I did. Yeah. So there's the droplets to get a better idea.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So have you?
It has to be hard.
It takes a little time, but once you figured it out, it's like basically the same technique over and over and over again. But,
so where did the watercolor journey take you? Was it something that you just kept in your garage, or did you expand? Did you share it with people?
So I was painting so prolifically that I would start giving them to people. I'd make everybody's birthday cards out of watercolor. I started doing a lot of that. And then by the time I was actually like seeking out publishers for my book, I knew that I needed to like have a website and stuff. So at that point, I decided to start making products like note cards from some of my paintings and putting them on a website, and just starting to get some videos online of me painting and things like that, just to get a sort of name for myself. So like all of those handles on like Instagram and TikTok are Jaime Gets Creative, because I was using my watercolor to build a little bit of a following as I was trying to get my book published, and then getting it published and started marketing it. I did. I get all my best ideas when I'm walking the dogs. We have two dogs, and I was on a walk at one point, and like I just got this vision in my head of what I wanted it to look like. Because the book is set in the 90s, I wanted it to have very like bright colors, and like also sort of a tiny bit of like a vintagey feel, but like clean lines and everything. And so I had learned Canva already, and I just came home and like started putting it together. And then when I actually was going through the publishing process, I did work with a cover designer, and she gave me 10 different covers, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't like any of them. I like mine better. And so she actually like touched up my design and made it, she did like the tie into the back, and like she formally made it into a cover, but I did the artwork from the beginning.
It's amazing. I mean, you truly are an artist. You really are an artist, and it's so impressive. And it has to have been so cool. Did you sell some of your stuff? Have you sold like the note cards or any of that?
Yeah, I have. I've sold quite a bit, and I've participated even in some art fairs and art shows, and it's fun because life is still hard. I don't put a lot of energy into marketing that stuff. I just have it available. And as events come up that fit into our schedule, I'll participate in an art show or something. But I really have wanted to keep the watercolor, I call it like pure for me. I do what I feel inspired to do. I paint what I want to paint just because I want to paint it. So people often ask if they can commission artwork from me. And I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that. I don't want you to sit here and tell me what you want me to paint. So the only commissioning I've ever allowed to happen is I donate pet portraits to different organizations. So like 826 LA, there's 826s all over. They work with inner city kids on writing and getting their resumes ready, applying to college and stuff. So I have donated pet portraits that, and so then they auction them off, and I will do a pet portrait of whoever wins that auction. And same thing with the girls. When they were in the basketball program through the high school, I would donate each year 1 or 2 pet portraits. And so that's the closest I've ever come to commissioning artwork, because I like animals and I like seeing their sweet personalities. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do this, but I have really strict, like, this is the size it's going to be. You can only have one animal in it. Like, I'm like, basically you get what you get.
But that's
you're dictating how.
Yeah, that's still very pure though. Like you're donating it almost for charity, or it's it's volunteering of your time. So it stays along those same lines of you're keeping it still in that space. So
I like the watercolor to be for like nourishing my soul. I really like it to be something that I get inspired and I sit down and I want to paint. And I do a lot of painting on vacations, or like I'll take a picture of a sunset when I'm, out, and I will go in and paint it. But I don't want to make it so that my painting becomes something that I have to do in order to earn an income. I'm blessed. I'm really very blessed that I don't have to do that. I know not everybody has that level of privilege. But I'm grateful that I do, and that I can set that boundary for myself, because it really does feel like it's just mine. It's just my food for my soul.
And your outlet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you've set a boundary around it. You cherish it and you protect it. And so I'm sure you don't have an issue setting that boundary. You probably fight that one. You're like, absolutely, you're not getting past this one. You're willing to fight for that.
Yeah, not every day can I paint for hours and hours like I did during COVID, but like one of my my boundaries is that every day I do a sketch and I color it in my like little
Wow.
sketchbook, and that's like 15 to 20 minutes every single day, even Christmas Day. Like this is an exercise that I like am really strict about doing for me. And then I also write my 3 journal pages every single day. It doesn't matter what is happening in the rest of the world. If I can do those 2 things, I can do them on an airplane, I can do them anywhere I am, and like that is protected, and I start my day that way every single day
That's
to just
amazing.
set me off on the path of like what's important to me will matter today no matter what else happens the rest of the day.
You're
That
giving to yourself. It's so, and you're honoring yourself. I love that. It's so important. And it's something we could all learn, men and women, but especially women. We give so much of ourselves that, like you just said, even if you make sure and give yourself 15 to 20 minutes a day just for you, because it sets the tone and it probably helps you then continue to do that through the rest of the day and
Yeah,
exercise the boundaries. So I'm
exactly.
sorry, what
no,
were
I
you
was just
saying?
thinking, it has to also be like that relief. Now you can
Mhm.
fill back up, but then you go paint or you go write, and it's out. You've
Yeah.
released it from your mind or body, and right.
Mhm.
I assume so.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. Especially the journal writing.
Yeah.
For me, that's something that Julia Cameron always in the artist way. She really pushes the 3 pages of journal writing, and it's not going to be your good writing that you do when you want to sit down and write like write. That's not your journal. Your journal is to clear the mind. It's to really just get all that garbage out. And so, yeah, if something happens to me, I am told my family, like, please just burn the journals because there's a lot of rage on the page in there. There's a lot of complaining about all the appointments that are going to fill up the rest of my day. And well, this
Right,
is just how today's going to go. I'm going to probably only do this little sketch and nothing else creative the rest of the day. But
right.
like, I get it out there. And that
Yeah.
is so, like you said, that is so important for just clearing out like my feelings about this
Mhm.
chaotic world I'm in matter, and my ability to process it is more possible, and I can approach everything with more calm, rational responses because I've given space to how I feel
Yeah.
about all of it, and I've given space to my creative needs even when the chaos is still around us. Even when I am
Yeah.
going to a funeral that day, I still paint in the morning, like it's still happening, it's just
I
Do
it's
you
love it. I
are
love it.
are all of your paintings, are they bright and say colorful and cheerful, or do you have any that are kind of dark and just
that's
black and white type of thing?
it's funny that you say that. So I do lean very bright and cheerful and colorful. I do a lot of beach landscapes. I love California beach
Hmm.
landscapes, and but when I was writing the book, and I decided to give my main character watercolor also to deal with her trauma that she's going through in it, I was very much in the mindset of a bitter, frustrated teenage girl. And I found part of my exercise in writing was really like doing some of the things she was doing, when she would drink Mr. Pibb and eat a Nutter Butter, like I would do that so that I could really describe it and like go through the sensation of it. And same thing when she was painting, I would be painting. And so some dark things really did come out during that time.
Wow.
And I have that work to sort of accompany the book. And I've shared some of it I have a Pinterest board and things like that when I was coming up with some of the ideas. And so I've shared some of it. And yeah, I have to get into that mindset. And usually
Yeah.
because my watercolor is such a precious thing to me that I want it to be a joyful
Yeah. Yeah.
experience. And
Yep.
I tend to be drawn to paint things that are bringing me more color, light, happiness, joy, rather than the
Wow.
dark stuff. The dark
Yeah.
stuff ends up in the journal pages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a balance. You're balancing yourself with the watercolor. Okay, so let's talk about the book. It's called
Yes.
Absorbed.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when did this start? I know you said you started the first 10,000 words after the watercolor led you to that. It gave you the bridge to get to that point and
Mhm.
spark your writing again. So what happened from there?
So I started the book literally. I was sitting on a beach in Hawaii for my grandmother, my dad's mom's funeral. We were spreading her ashes because she had just died. And it was my last term of college. I had 6 weeks to get these 10,000 words written. And my oldest daughter was beginning her sophomore year of high school, and my youngest daughter was beginning 8th grade, and school was starting the next day. Literally, we were leaving on the plane to get home and get them into school. And I said, I need to write what I know. That's the only way that 10,000 words that make any sort of logical sense are going to come out of me, is if I write what I know. I was like, okay, well, what do I know? Well, I love music. My husband and I, when we started dating, started going to all these concerts, punk rock concerts, and we still to this day go to concerts all the time. And we love the music of the 90s. I'm like, okay, I know that. I was a lifeguard in the 90s. And some of my favorite movies were like Caddyshack, and like I loved 90210, and I loved like Dawson's Creek, and I loved Clueless. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. I could write a story about like a teenage girl in the 90s, because I'm surrounded by teenage girls also, with 2 teenagers at the time. I have teenage girls all around me. I could write about a teenage girl in the 90s, and it could be like Baywatch meets Clueless at the community pool. And so it gave me like all these ideas. They just started generating. And so I started making, like a scrapbook of ideas, like pulling pictures off the internet. Of who would look like, which characters would look like what, who did they want to be when they grew up, what kind of cars did they drive, what kinds of food did they like, what did they, fight about, all these things. And it generated so many ideas. And I really was drawn to the idea of telling a story that touched on the topics that are pertinent to teenagers now, but were very much a part of our life back then. And some things, I said it in 1996, which was really important, because that was actually when the Olympics happened in Atlanta, and there was the bombing at the Olympics. So that was a big moment. That was the year that Independence Day, the huge blockbuster movie, came out, right? And we would like line up around the theater to get our tickets and get our seats, because you couldn't used to, buy a ticket over the phone or something. You couldn't reserve a seat. You had to go sit there and line up for that. And Planned Parenthoods were being bombed in that middle 90s time. There was a huge debate happening over women's right to say no, and to have a choice about their body, and about their birth control, and about abortions, and all of those things. We have not evolved that much as a society, because we're still dealing with this same kind of stuff happening right now, right? So I really wanted to talk in a story that's like a coming of age story of a teenage girl. I wanted to talk to both the Gen X and older millennial moms now and their teenage daughters, and say, like, you actually understand each other better than you realize, because what you are going through is what we were going through. Maybe we didn't have a cell phone, maybe we didn't have internet, but we had Nikki Taylor and Cindy Crawford that we were comparing our bodies to. We were told that the only way that you would ever be desirable is to wear a Wonder Bra and to take FinFen to like lose all the weight. Like, we had the same kinds of pressures on our bodies, and we had the same kind of pressures the feminist revolution has come a long way, but we were at that stage being told women can do it all and should do it all. And so girls are learning that exact same lesson right now, and the pressure is huge on them. So I really wanted to write a story that would bridge that gap and show moms how they could be more compassionate to their daughters, because they really do understand what they're going through, but it would draw them in through the pop culture and through going back in time when cell phones didn't exist. And that the same story could tell those teenage daughters, you can talk to your moms, because they really do get it, because they really were there. And so far, like, I've gone to all these book clubs and even like boy moms have said, I'm so glad you wrote this book, because there are scenes that took me back to that nuance of being in the car and being afraid to say no, because, you're so insecure, and this is your big crush, and you don't want him to like hate you. And so is it consent or is it not consent? Is not saying no the same as saying yes? Well, obviously it's not. And so these moms now of teenage boys are like, I know how to have that conversation now because I was right back there where Stacy in your book is, where she's so scared and she has natural desires in her to want to be with this guy, but she's not ready. And like, this constant tug and pull of how to do the right thing and say the right thing and look the right way, and it all feels like none of it makes sense, and she's just trying to figure her way through it and making so many mistakes along the way. So
that's awesome.
Anyway,
that's awesome. Yeah. And you know, and you're right. Everything you just said, it's parallel. We went through it just in a different time, and it's nuanced, but it's the same shit. It's the same. And I mean, I will say that I don't know if it's with social media or what, but at least with the Gen Z generation, I think that the consent, at least it's talked about more. Where with us, it wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even, right. That word wasn't in our vocabulary.
No.
So at least it's there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a subject that is discussed. It's not a new concept.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm also a little concerned because as I'm understanding it, Gen Z is like actually having the least sexual experiences of any generation. Like they're really just not blossoming sexually the way that most teenagers did in all the generations before and really coming into their own. They seem to be like putting the brakes on before they even get there.
Really?
I'm finding that a lot. I'm amazed, and I've actually looked into some research on it, and it's incredible to me. There are definitely still kids being teenagers and making those choices, but it is significantly lower than it was.
So are you talking about, because Gen Z is 15 to 28, so you're probably not talking about the ones in their 20s. You're more talking about the teenagers?
But I think the studies are even on the ones in their 20s, that they just are in general having a lot less sex than their counterparts of the same age 20 years ago, 40 years ago. They just in general are having a lot less sex. There's a lot more online connecting and not physical connecting with other individuals. They're just not crossing over into the physical realm with a lot of people.
That makes sense. Well, and the dating apps are such a nightmare. So there's a lot of games going on there, a lot of, where people are like, yeah, let's meet up. And then they block them, they ghost them, whatever. So that's a whole thing. But the building the relationship, texting, and having like a 3-month, what would have been 3 months for us dating face to face, they can accomplish it all within a week.
Yeah, it's condensed. Of
constant talking. It's condensed down. Yeah. So, but so other than the online, is it at all that young women are, I'm not going to say having more self-respect, because that's not what I mean. But are they being more intentional with who they have sex with? Is that generation? You know what I'm trying to say?
I do think I understand what you're saying. And I hope that that's the case. I think for a lot of Gen Z, they're still on the younger side to maybe even articulate that that's exactly what's happening. I do think that there's also, these are teenagers and young 20s somethings who grew up in the Me Too generation, and they grew up being afraid of what happens to women. And hearing that you can get in an Uber and then, that person could attack you, that you could meet somebody who said that they just wanted to get to know you through a dating app, and that person might attack you. And I genuinely think that a lot of young women are afraid of meeting someone, and they are not meeting them face to face. They're meeting them online, and they know that online persona could be completely false. And so they're just very hesitant. They're just really like, you've got to go a lot further in exposing who you are as an individual and being really open and honest with them before they'll even come close to considering a sexual relationship.
What age group are you talking, would you say? What?
I mean, I have nieces that are turning 30, and then my daughter, the youngest, is 16, and I've seen it through that whole 14-year
Okay.
gap. I've
Yep.
seen it with all of them, that they just when they meet someone and they start dating, they're a lot slower than we were to even get into a position where they might have sex. Like they just don't even like, no, you don't come to my house. I don't go to your house.
Yeah.
I'll meet you there. I won't go in the car with you there. Let's just hang out as friends for a long time. We'll snap each other for 6 months. You know, all these things, they just are much more hesitant. They're much more cautious because I really do believe they've grown up in a world that they've been taught that they should be afraid, that they can be attacked at any point, because that's what they've seen in so many of these stories.
I wonder, do you think that's an East versus West Coast thing?
I don't know.
Because I don't know if that's happening here as much.
Because our daughter's 24, almost 25, and our son's 28. And
I feel like we've seen more of a hookup culture. I don't know if it's still happening with the youngest one, right? He's just on the forefront of that. But the other two and all their friends and all the kids I don't want to say all their friends. Let me rephrase it. Kids their age.
Yeah.
It felt like that they were older than the Me Too. So they've kind of got their wings below them in a sense, or
I don't know if they were, because that was when they were in high school. That was wasn't that like 2012, 2014, 15, like somewhere around
probably 15. I think the marches were happening around 2015, 2016, something like that. Yeah,
they weren't happening here. Then I think.
Well, no.
I think Florida, I think maybe a Florida versus California thing. I don't know. But also my nieces in Minnesota, very similar.
But what she's talking about, as far as, it's almost like, because I've seen it, I know what you're talking about. It's almost like there's so much information, and there's so much, like every worry that a mother has is now on social media, on the internet. Be careful, like how we just say to them, be careful, we have our talks, and they go out the door. Now it's every other TikTok short is talking about. Now I just have to tell you a story. I was at, Publix, and there was something on my car, and I had someone walk. But I mean, it's constant. It's constant. And so the spontaneity and the just having those like exciting moments where you just let it all go. They're not able to let it all go because they have so much anxiety about what could happen. Too. Well, that's
everything's being filmed, so they could be destroyed in a second. And fentanyl is a real thing. Whereas, we might have gone to a party and like somebody hands you a joint and you just whatever, or you just take the right cup. These kids are so aware of getting roofied, of getting handed something that the first time they try anything, I could kill them that moment. And so they're very afraid of that. So I just think in general, when we were teenagers and connecting with people in real time, and hormones were strong in both sides of that connection, and things happened, that's just not what I'm seeing happening, because they aren't smelling each other's pheromones when they are on Snap. They aren't, getting inebriated because they're afraid of what might be handed to them. I'm not saying no one is. Certainly there are kids. There are certainly in our community, though. Growing up, I would say probably about 50% of the kids I knew were going to parties and hooking up with people and kind of, experimenting with drugs and sex and alcohol. In my kids' school, I would say it's probably 10% of the kids are doing that, not 50, not even remotely close to 50.
Which is
these
so
kids
are us. Yeah.
They're really shut down, and they're studying, or they're playing their sports, or they're like so overcommitted that they just don't even have the time.
So much more responsible.
Yeah. They are so much more responsible.
I mean, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Because that's so important. Because when we were growing up, it was like we had kegers, and we would just go out and party every weekend. But to your point, we were never worried about fentanyl. I mean, the most chemical thing we had was acid and Coke.
But no one
but it wasn't
with that.
No, there wasn't any of that to worry about. And that does happen in Florida, because I know of a kid that it's happened to. But and that's happening everywhere. But so you're right. You have that. So you don't have just the inhibition with drugs and alcohol that we did. And the roofie, I mean, my daughter and all her friends constantly are aware of their drink all through college. In high school, they were always with their friend groups, with guys and girls, but so there wasn't that worry. But once they got to college and then at the bars now, that's an automatic thing. They don't even think about it. They just with watching their drinks.
They are trained to be cautious.
They are.
And kind of stick together. Have you noticed that with your daughter?
Oh, yes.
They operate as a better unit than when you guys were younger, our age. You guys fought or were catty, right?
Yeah.
You would throw her under the bus, compete with one another.
My part of Gen X, I don't know about your part, but the girlhood in Gen Z is amazing. Like they're very, in general, very supportive. They hype each other up. They're like, oh my God, I love your dress.
They have great emotional intelligence too.
Yes.
When they do have those catty moments, which they do, girls have those catty moments.
Yeah.
They actually work through it and figure it out for the most part. It's incredible.
It is.
Thank God. You guys have great emotional intelligence to address these issues with one another. Of course, friends fall out. Of course, there's keggers with some kids. Of course, there's kids getting knocked up in high school. I don't think that's ever going to 100% go away.
Right.
But I'm just saying that the difference between what it was like in the 90s and what it's like now, these kids are raised in a world of being cautious. Also, I am leaning more towards the younger ones because like my one who's a junior in high school, she was entering middle school when COVID hit. Her 6th grade year was entirely online. These kids learned to be afraid at the time that they should have been feeling more independence and more excitement about the world. And instead they were like, everybody only sees me online. So I better not screw up online because that's the only, it all needs to be perfect. And when I do get face to face with them, we have to keep our distance and we have to be careful. And then as they even came together in high school, they're all just real cautious around each other. That generation of that young, like those 16, 17-year-olds right now, it is amazing to watch just how they court one another online for a year and then end up, no, we're not going to actually have a relationship. Like they just don't even go there. They spend so much time being cautious.
They shot their shot online and then it's like you've gone through the whole arc online and then it's kind of like, we did it, but you didn't really do anything. My older son, he hates social media. But one of the things he always says is it's so fake because you have all this time to come up with the perfect response. So that organic back and forth, that face-to-face, that instant of I'm getting the real you because it's happening in real time doesn't exist. So he's like, it's great for guys because she'll say something and I've got however long I want to come up with just the perfect response. And he goes, and then you watch guys go out on a date and they're tongue-tied because they can't, the skill of doing this. And he did attribute some of that to COVID. He did. He said that when
he viewed it as being socially stunting.
Because he was getting out of college at that time in 2019, he graduated. So all those kids that got out of college that normally would go into the bar scene, like after work, they get their jobs, they're meeting singles and going on the weekends and stuff. That didn't happen for them. So that was all online. So it is that social stunting, and then combine that with being afraid of everything and the anxiety. So then there's no inhibition. There's no fun,
free,
being free. So I never attributed though to stunting their normal teenage sexual experiences, but it did. I never thought about that.
I think there's going to be an interesting, the pendulum always swings. It swings really far one way and then it swings really far the other way. And I think, a lot of these things are very natural, animal instincts that will eventually, kick in certain ways. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens as they get older and how this evolves and changes. But I think just their whole approach to the world is very, very different. And relationships. And like you were saying about the texting, like the girls' side of that is, they're like curating the perfect response amongst all their girlfriends. They're like, okay, so if I say it this way, how would he take it? What if I say it this way? Oh, let's check in with that guy and see what he would think. He's our friend, so he'll give us feedback on what he would think if I did this, right? They're curating it all. And then, you get them face to face and they're so afraid of like, what if I say or do the wrong thing? Yeah.
It's funny you say that, the pendulum and swinging. This is almost like going back to the 40s or 50s.
Almost. The way they're acting.
We'll go through this period of conservatism or purity type of thing and then they'll come out really wild on the other side.
But it's not even like it's
I bet it will
that way. But yeah. When they all go to college and they have to see each other. Although I'm hearing that's more and more online, and you don't.
It is. And there's so many fewer boys in the in-person college experience too than there ever were before. So that's an interesting part of my older daughter being at this school. She's like, there are almost no straight men here. How is this? Like, she's like, I don't think I could meet a guy to date right now because all the guys I'm meeting are like gay, or they are, they're a little too aggressive with her in person. Right, and so she's really afraid. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, back up. Like,
so are the quote unquote straight guys, like, are they just taking online courses or something? Or are they just
as I understand it, again, like these studies are being done, like there's just fewer and fewer and fewer guys going to college at this point than were before.
She's in New York?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And she's at a very liberal school. It's about 4,000 students, but it is like, I think her school is like 70% female at this point. Yeah.
New York's changed for sure.
What a trip. Yeah. I never had correlated all, and I have to really like observe Dylan, like Dylan's 15. I mean, he's on his phone a lot, but he has, like, he hangs out with a girl and he does all those normal things. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
And they do get together, but I don't
friends,
know.
like in large groups. Yeah, that's how my 16-year-old. It's always his friends in large groups. They'll go do things
they hang out, and So, but now I'm going to have to like really watch and really observe this. So, but I didn't ever think about again how it affects just that normal. Because we were all just kind of just do whatever our generation. Because we were the 80s.
Yeah, we were reckless.
Yeah, we were crazy.
Amazing.
But I think the 90s was very similar. When I talk to people who went through high school and college in the 90s, because we graduated college 93. I think you guys were very similar to what we did in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think it's the same. So
have a party in a field.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have gotten in your car and driven, but you probably did.
Yeah, we all did that. So
I wonder though, I think Hollywood was probably rocked by Me Too, right? With right, there's Holly weird in some ways. So a lot of the so is that in your news cycle there, if you're watching local news like that, because it's miles away. For us, it's multiple states, 3,000 miles away type of thing. Is that just like front and center there?
I mean, like the Harvey Weinstein thing.
Yeah.
Like that affected a huge population in this area. And so, the ripple effect of that into all of the different, we have so many industries that touch the Hollywood, and like it had a really widespread effect. And most of the lawyers that were dealing with the Weinstein stuff were here, and their clients were here, and so it was all very loud and vocal here for sure, and still to this day is. And women have very little hesitation about standing up for you can't talk to me that way, you can't, you're crossing the line with me right here, and.
What's her name? Blake Lively and that other guy. Their
Ryan Reynolds.
Justin Baldoni.
Yeah. I'm sure that's local news, right? For us, that's national news type of thing. But
actually, they're all the way in New York. All those people are in New York, but it's very front and center here. We get all of it.
Part of the industry.
That's interesting, though, that what you said about that the Me Too is still very like front and center there, because like. Out here, it's like exists, and what you're talking about exists, and everyone knows it happened, and the results of it exists here, but it's not like a topical thing. But it's not just,
and that's up and down the whole East Coast.
Yeah,
like we've done a lot of traveling over the, our son plays travel across, so we're up and down all the way up to like Boston, or it's not as, I don't think it's as topical.
Like no one talks about it, but do people still talk about it out there?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, my husband and I just started watching a show that was Friends and Neighbors. Have you heard of Friends and Neighbors? And it's a pretty recent show. And they, like, one of the major things that blows up his life is, even though he was a divorced man, a younger woman in his office came on to him, and he loses his career because of it. Like it's even showing up in still like what's being put out there, because it's still very much a prevalent reality in a lot of I just
I assume that a lot of the results from it have been implemented into corporate America at the very least, right? So that it's just kind of how it is.
There's still human beings who are living and working in the same place, and they are sexual beings, and then they have a relationship, and then it blows up one person. Like this is something that I talk about with my husband a lot, because there's sort of the pendulum swaying so far the other way that like 100%. There's ramifications for one person and not for this other person, even if this other person maybe initiated it, it's seen as an opportunity to get that guy out or something. Like it's just
like it's weaponized.
Yeah, in some ways. I'm not saying it always is. I absolutely am not. But I think I think even though it's a movement that ended, maybe 10 years ago or 8 years ago, it still has a very strong prevalence in day-to-day working life in a lot of these big industry jobs, like Hollywood jobs, like financial jobs, like lawyers and doctors, because we see all these doctors, like the gymnast doctors it's finally coming out. A lot of the people who have used their power. Exactly.
It's honestly a good thing. It really is. Yes. That power dynamic got too far out of control. Honestly, I bet it was always there. And this finally caught the attention and said, hey, this isn't okay. So it's a good thing. But the weaponization of it's not a good thing. That's terrible. But that's it is what it is. When now that the genie's out of the bottle, in that power dynamic, the abuse of it, right? Yes. So the genie's out of the bottle. You better watch your ass and just be a decent person. Or there are results.
So does your book go into it? Like, obviously it's in the 90s, so it doesn't go into it, but do you dive into consent during that time?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So there's basically the premise is that the main character is very inexperienced, very naive, a very people-pleasing type person. Like, I was drawing on a lot of my own experiences for this. And then she ends up working with somebody she has a crush on, and he starts flirting with her. So she thinks, he likes her. And in this case, he would like wear like the What Would Jesus Do bracelets, and he was a part of the Christian club on campus, and he would play, worship songs on his guitar. So she thought like he was a good guy and like somebody safe to date. And then they get alone in the car, and he pushes it further and further and further. And she liked him, but she's afraid to say no. And then that happens probably about a third of the way into the book, or maybe a quarter of the way into the book. And the rest of the book is really unraveling, like, why did you think you could do that with me? And like, I didn't even have the words, because I had never been in any situation like this before. And because she was so naive, she didn't have any sort of birth control. She had never experimented with any of this before. Yeah. And so then she ends up, finding out she's pregnant. And like, then she's like, my whole life is going to be blown up by this. And he's like, well, but everybody will, they will hate us if they know that you went to Planned Parenthood. We can't do that. But it's not going to affect you. It's going to affect me. It's not. And so it's just a lot of those conversations are throughout the book, and really like hit hard on like, you can't do this to people. And so she and another girl who she works with at the pool, both kind of dealt with this guy the same way. And so they start to, tell him like call him things like a hit it and quit it asshole. Like he's just in it to get laid, and then he dumps you, and like, treats girls like slot machines. And like, and so a lot of that is, her figuring out her own self-worth, and that her voice, she should have used her voice, and finding out that her voice matters, and sort of getting back in his face, and he learns from it. She learns from it. They all kind of like learn from this experience. And so,
but it's dealing with like that shame that she probably felt from it, and that probably realizing it's not hers to carry. She shouldn't have the shame. But what's so interesting is during that time that you've set the story in, no one was talking about anything that you're writing about. No one.
That you got to think about in the 90s, like we had the Monica Lewinsky stuff. And so like,
but everyone laughs about that.
Sort of, but also like she, like to be a teenager at that time, you saw that like if you were the girl that it was exposed that you did this, your life will be blown up. You are a slut. You're a horrible, evil person. And so she's like, I can't let anybody know that this happened. Like they're all going to call me a slut and they're all gonna like shame me. Exactly. So
or it becomes like a joke, like late night comics were making jokes about her.
Yeah.
Like they made a joke of her. She was completely taken advantage of. Let's be real. It's a horrendous situation. Absolutely. But even in that moment, and we were in our 20s, right? I didn't even realize how bad it was until I got older because of the way society treated it and treated her. Like she was treated horrendously.
He got off.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. He was boys being boys.
To be honest with you, I'm really proud of her and how she's handled it all now as an adult. She's kudos to her.
A podcast, right?
She does.
She does, and it's about taking back her power, and she attributes a lot of that to these younger generations learning to speak up and to say you can't do this to me, and embracing her and saying what was done to you was wrong, and her feeling like she finally has a group of women who understands and is willing to support her, because all the women who are older than her all shamed her. Yeah,
the world shit on her. And she was 18. 19 years old or something.
She was young. She was very young.
Totally taken advantage of.
The younger women are the ones that are validating her. Yeah, I love that. That's the Gen Zers, right? Yeah. She's millennial, I think. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's what
no, she's older than I am, I think. I think she's actually like 48. Yeah, because I was a teenager when she was an intern at that. I think she was in her 20s.
Okay,
early 20s.
Younger than us, so she might be like in her late 40s.
I was just about to ask you if you know how she matches up to your age.
I always still think of her as that age.
I always think of her as a young kid.
That's what I mean. That age. But I love that. Okay, maybe like the millennial women and the Gen Zs are validating her because she is so do that. But that's what I'm saying. Like you've taken these modern concepts of discussing this and validating her experience, your character's experience, but that's a modern concept from now that you've now implemented into the setting of the 90s.
Exactly. That was putting that lens on it is part of building that bridge between our generation and this generation. Like it's not that different, even though we didn't have the language for it then. That's the beauty of fiction, right? We can talk about it now in a way that shows that without them they don't really use the word consent in the book. That's right. They're addressing it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, is this your first book?
It is. It was my dream way back when I transferred colleges and was a writing major. It was my dream to publish a novel, and it just took a long time to come back to me.
It's amazing. How hard was it to get it published?
It's an experience. It was not my favorite experience, and I will say, when you are an unknown person out there with as many known people and as many books are getting published, it's really like pulling teeth to get anybody to even pay attention to you. So the fact that it is published and on bookshelves and available through Barnes and Noble and local bookstores and in libraries and everything is like a huge accomplishment.
It is.
But as I understand it, I've just got to I got to get the next one out and the one after that, because that's when it starts to really make a difference.
Yeah.
You gotta have 2 or 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Once you sat down to write it, how long?
So I wrote those first 10,000 words in 6 weeks, and then I graduated in October of 2022. By January of 2023, I had 97,000 words. So I really just poured myself into it, and then I spent the next year until January of 2024, really like going back and revising and honing in on things and tying up all of everything into what it is now. So that was a whole additional year. But that first pass was really 4 months. Yeah, to get it.
How many pages is 10,000 words?
Well, so 100,000 words is about 375 to 400 pages around there.
Yep.
So it's about 35 pages, I guess, would be 10,000 words.
Yeah.
So,
It's
took
amazing.
35 to 40 pages.
I mean, not just that you wrote it, but that you got it published is, like you said, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother
You're a published author.
You're a published
I'm
author.
a published author, and my kids watched me do it
Yeah.
while they were in high school, and I was on the booster club of the basketball team, and I was helping with all the other things with my mom and her estate. And they watched it happen in real time, and they saw what it means to prioritize my dreams and make them come true. And that is probably the biggest thing, because for so long I was like, thank God for Taylor Swift, because they can see that this woman can make her dreams come true, and she's a beautiful, smart, woman to look up to. And now I'm like, actually, so am I. Like, I can make my dreams come true. And I'm a beautiful, smart, talented person to look up to too. So,
well, on that note, what are some things that you've worked on with your daughters, or things you've tried to say or be an example so that they do grow up to be these empowered young women who have a voice, who have that self-confidence, that innate self-confidence, self-respect, and know to go after their dreams? Like, how did you approach, because I have one girl, and that I mean, I've devoted a significant amount of time just to try to make sure she left my house with that, because I didn't have that. So I'm like, I'm going to give you that before you leave. And it's been a beautiful thing to watch it happen through her 20s, that it's happening, what I was hoping. Too. I mean, that's double that. So how did you take that on?
Well, we're still early in it at 16 and 18, but I think what I have really done the whole time is I've tried to find that happy balance where they know that they can come to me with anything. We can talk about anything. So I really try to be more curious than judgmental in anything they come to me with. So that they know that I will help them by being a listener and giving them guidance, but it's their life to live and make choices about. So even though I talk about, that I did all of the application process myself getting into college, well, so did my older daughter. I equipped her with tools and I read through the essays, but I was not choosing which colleges she was applying to. I was not looking at dates that they were due. If you want to go to college, you've really got to own this, and we will. And so she was the one who decided, the oldest one, that she really wanted to go to New York. And so she applied to 6 colleges in New York, and she wrote the essays and got them all in on time. And she chose which of those she decided she wanted to go to. And I think that's my husband's and my approach with both of them is, we will be your greatest champions, but we will never be ahead of you on the path that you're going down, because it's your path. You're choosing which path you're going, and we're just there trying to equip you and help you and support you along the way. So he's a really great partner in all of that. I think his parents did a really good job raising him and everything, because he was so much younger than his siblings. He kind of was a little bit like an only child, but also as a third child, what they say, the first, you treat with kid gloves, and then the third one, you let them juggle knives, right? Yeah. So he was very much that, you'll figure this out, you'll get it. And so he and I both kind of have that attitude of I was capable. We believe you're capable too. And that's kind of how we treat everything with them. If you want it, you'll make it happen. And we'll just be here cheering you on and supporting you how we can, but we're not doing it for you, because it's not my life to live, it's yours. Yeah.
And that'll that's perfect. It's honestly chef's kiss. And that will work great for you guys as they go into their 20s, because that's a whole nother animal. But you'll find that with that attitude, they will still come to you for that guidance and for that advice. They will be living their life, but you'll still have that connection, and it'll be in a healthy way, because your role changes. But of course, you guys you completely have set them up where not only are they going to take off, but you're still going to have that connection with them. And it just sounds like you guys have done an amazing job. So, especially considering you did this through chaos, this started back in that move when they were little. And then everything that's been going on up until now and still going on, the fact that you were able to maintain that way of raising them, it's really amazing.
20 years from now, they may be in therapy and talking about their trauma of going through all of this. But I think maybe some of it, it was also survival mode, right? Like, I can't do all of this for you. There's only so much I can do. So you've got to own what you are capable of owning right now, because I've got too much on my plate, and same with him. And so I think some of it was just out of necessity, but it really has made them very independent and self-motivated people that we're so proud of. Like same thing when my friends are like, how'd you get your girls to get their license? I'm like, they went online and did the online classes themselves, and then they scheduled, and I just took them to the DMV to get their permit. And then they said, Mom, get me the driving lessons. Okay, I get you the drive, and then they go do that, and then when they're ready, they say, okay, now I'm ready to take the test. I just equip them because it's what they wanted to do. And so I think it was out of necessity, but it also ended up, thank God, like working out the way that is setting them up pretty well for success.
No,
I always say, like, the best thing you can do for your kids is just show them that you believe in them by having them do, I believe in you enough that you can do this. And when you do everything for them, you're kind of saying, I don't believe in you that you can do this on your own, so I need to help you. So it's hard at first, but you're showing them, I believe in you, you can do this. And it's kind of forcing them to do certain things, but it's with that belief you have in them, and they know it, and then they find that pride. It's confidence building, 100%.
Emotional intelligence.
So what's some advice you would give to women who are hitting their midlife, and they have been grinding, and they have been putting their dreams and passions aside for whatever reason, family, marriage, friends, whatever, job, and they're getting to this point, and they're looking around, and they're saying, oh my goodness, like, they're facing their mortality, and they don't know who they are, and where do they start?
I think what I've really come to is, fear, anxiety, stress, all of these experiences really force us to draw inward to protect ourselves. We really start to shut down and close off and just put your head down and just keep pushing forward, right? Because it is a self-preservation. And by finding a creative outlet, it's impossible to be inward and creative, because creative is an outward expression. It is absolutely meant to be shared. Any sort of creativity is meant to be shared in some sort of outward fashion. And so, for me, watercolor was the ticket to drawing me out of myself and having more of those joyful outward expressions. For some people, maybe it's photography or dance class, or my husband, I kid you not, he is the most talented spreadsheet designer, and he can make a spreadsheet that does anything. He, just to prove me wrong, like, he made a spreadsheet that solves any Sudoku puzzle, because I would do Sudoku puzzles, and he's like, well, I can solve them faster than you. And the way he did it was by making a spreadsheet to do that, right? And that's a very creative thing to do. So I really encourage anybody who's feeling that sense of, like, overwhelmed, stressed, or those tidal waves of grief and anxiety that just keep hitting you over and over and over, to really find something creative, some sort of something creative that you can do for 15 minutes a day. Just 15 minutes. Really say to yourself, like, it has no deliverable to anyone else in the world. Those first watercolors were not for anyone else. And I love the person that I learned from. She says it all over and over again. She's like, it's just a piece of paper. You can throw it away, because the product is not the purpose. The process is the purpose. Just sitting down and doing this creative thing is the purpose. That's why you do it. So if that is, making little rock statues while you're on a walk at the beach or something, whatever it is, give yourself 15 minutes a day. And I promise that when you really set that time of a creative expression in your day, you start to feed your soul and start to pull out of those stress and say, if I can get 15 minutes where I don't feel this way every day, maybe I can get 30 minutes where I don't feel this way. Maybe I can get an hour where I don't feel this way. And you'll start to really put back into your priorities how to recenter your life in a way that you feel that calm again more often, how to set those boundaries. I really am a big believer that it starts with that creative experience, whatever it is, whatever it needs to be for each person, because you can't sit there and look at a beautiful sunset that you're capturing with a photograph, or you're painting, or you're sketching, and also be going, oh my gosh, the laundry is piling up. Like, it just, you have to focus on this thing for 15 minutes, and it will help you to say that stuff doesn't matter quite as much. My peace matters, and it needs to be prioritized.
That's amazing advice, because as a result, it's learning how to honor yourself and find yourself again. But I love that 15 minutes. It's such a small step, and it's doable, and it won't overwhelm someone. Just try that and see where it leads you. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah. Thank you. And you're such a great example of that. So now before
it made all the difference. It really did.
Obviously. Before I ask my last question, do you have any other questions?
I do. Before I forget, I find you to be very remarkable.
Thank you.
Just your insight into who you are is super impressive. So kudos to you. I'm just blown away, to be honest with you. On a lighter note, that seemed to touch you.
No, I appreciate it. I think we all need to hear more of that. So thank you for that.
Music. What's your music? You guys, that was your jam, right? And so what's
I got my No Doubt on right now.
What's her name? Gwen, right?
Gwen Stefani.
Yes, Gwen Stefani. Well, so we, growing up in Southern California, the pop punk of Southern California, the No Doubt, Blink-182, Green Day, Social Distortion, all of these bands were
Chili Peppers.
Oh, a little bit of the Peppers, absolutely, yes. And so all of those were big influences, but I did have the older siblings that, liked different kinds. My brother was super into Nirvana, so of course I love Nirvana, and, Toad the Wet Sprocket, and then, I had the influence of the Prince and Michael Jackson and all of that. That was a little older for me, but it was all there. Now my husband and I are, we're House of Blues members. So we go to concerts all the time. Okay. We love connecting in our relationship that way on a regular basis, but also with our kids. So we have, bucket list kind of concerts that we like to go to. So a big one that we did this summer was we went to Red Rocks and we saw Mumford & Sons at Red Rocks, which was just the perfect environment for that music.
Yeah.
We also had been big Oasis fans back in the 90s. And so we just went 2 weeks ago to see Oasis at the Rose Bowl with our daughter and her best friend. We wanted to take both of our girls, but our older one had already moved to New York at that point. So, you bought the tickets for a full year ago, 4 tickets, and then you find out, well, sorry, you don't get to go. We listen to all kinds of music, but we really he and I still really connect over that pop punk that we loved. And that's why it plays such an important part in the book that I wrote, is them going to shows and listening to that music, the Warped Tour, going to the Warped Tour, wearing Doc Martens and Vans and Converse and ripped shorts, and having, the pompadour hairstyle with the ponytail, and just like Gwen Stefani did. And all of those things were just a big part of our falling in love experience that we, that's part of how we keep the spark alive now. And
you guys are lucky too. Like in South Florida, our music scene isn't great. It's like you can go to the Hard Rock, which is a stadium, but you've got like the Hollywood Bowl there, I think, right? All over SoCal, there's tons of good.
So many venues, big and small. All of them,
You're very lucky.
You're in the Mecca.
Almost any day of the week, year round, you could see live music. And in fact, we do. Even if we're just going to a restaurant, we almost always choose to go to a restaurant where somebody's playing live music that we can listen to, and it's covers of our favorite songs, Van Morrison or Tom Petty or whatever, So we are very, very lucky where we are located that we can do that all the time.
It's relatable because we're Deadheads. So we in college, we always went to Dead shows, but live music was a huge part of our life. we were friends in college. We weren't dating then, but we've continued to have live music. I call it our outlet, and it's our reconnection.
Yes.
When we go to see live music together, and our children, we involve them. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't, but we're a music family. If we're going to a concert, we're buying 5 tickets.
It's too damn expensive.
Well, now
anymore.
that's like $25.
I know. That's why smaller venues are good.
And now it's like, but we have that because when you're there like that, you're right back to when you were young.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like time hasn't passed, and you know, him and I could walk around a concert now together, and it's like we're 22 doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great way to hold on to that, like you said, that connection, that spark. But what's funny, it's also was a great way for our kids as they went through their teen years to stay connected, because they went to music festivals. So now our older two, they bonded as teenagers with music. So now, then they continued to go see live music festivals together. And now they're going to bring in the younger ones. So music also, my point is a huge integral part of our home and our family. And I think it's live music especially is such a great way for people to stay connected with their relationships, but also as a family with their children. You know,
and it is a creative experience. Even if you're not the one creating the music, being there, it resonates through your whole body. It releases different kinds of happy endorphins to be present, to feel the ground literally moving under your feet because of the bass, and to see people around you filled with joy dancing. I have a lot of friends who are deadheads also, but it doesn't matter what the music is that moves you. When you're in a concert environment, you are a part of it, and you're a part of this whole community of people that is a part of that music as well. And it's a very communal experience that I think is an outward expression of joy also. So it's just another way that we get creative in our family, and it connects us again to those things that really matter.
That's such a great point, because you do feel the vibe of it from you're all feeding off of everyone. And I dance my ass off, and I always feel like I just went through what's it called, somatic healing kind of after, because I've been dancing so much. Like I feel like this is like somatic healing.
For me, it's my church. Like the Grateful Dead was my church. I'm not a religious guy. Now I'm on the Billy Strings. He comes to SoCal every now and then, but we're checking out. We're gonna go see him in Huntsville.
He got me into Billy Strings. He's like bluegrass jam band.
Oh yeah, love it.
He's a kid. He's what, in his early 30s?
No, he's mid 30s.
Mid-30s.
He just won Bluegrass Musician of the Year, or
he's
Performer of the Year or something.
Oh wow,
he's
it's not bluegrass though. In my mind, he does cover tunes. He'll do like Floyd, Bob Dylan.
It's bluegrass though. But in a couple weeks, we're going to Alabama for 3 nights. So we're road trippers. We're big road trippers, but we're still making road trips to go see shows. So it's awesome. Like my point is that I completely relate to what you're saying, because I think it's just so important, and it's cool that you guys do that.
Actually, Oasis is the band. It's the British band that took time off and so my buddy is a big Oasis fan. Him and his high school friends, they all flew over to, I think it was Scotland or the UK, maybe wherever their first tour, the first night.
Glastonbury, I think, was the first one. Yeah.
They all
so they're brothers, the Gallaghers, Liam and Noel,
that's what it is.
Gallagher, and they have a very contentious relationship. And so they actually fell out of contact with each other when they broke up, because they fought all the time. And when they wanted to do this tour, whoever they worked with to set up the tour was really, really smart, because they had broken up so many times, and sometimes right on stage. In fact, one concert that my husband and I went to 20 more years ago, they were supposed to be one of the headline bands, and they broke up that day and didn't play because they used to break up all the time. So whoever set up this tour was really smart, because they said the only way you make a penny off of this tour is if you finish the entire tour. You have to finish the whole thing. And so they can't break up until this tour is done. So it's like, I think I'm not sure, something like 14 or 20 shows is what they agreed to. And that's all anybody really expects them to do, because they probably will break up because they really have that contentious of a relationship.
Wow.
But it's been so huge. Everybody, I mean, I don't personally love those kinds of shows. The Rose Bowl had over 80,000 people at it. And that is just that is like a very overwhelming experience for me to be at. But that kind of energy with the number of people who wanted to see them, who loved them back in the day, it was like, we need to be right back there with you. That was amazing. And I'm glad we went. It's a bucket list, like I said, but I don't know. I definitely prefer like the Lumineers at the Hollywood Bowl, where it's like, 25,000 people outside with the stars above, and it's for mellow music. It's just a different kind of thing.
Have we ever seen anyone with 80,000 people?
I mean, the Dead shows at Giant Stadium were pretty big. Bruce Springsteen, when we saw him, Giant Stadium holds 80,000.
That was a lot. That was our son's first concert. He was 5.
Even the Chili Peppers in Miami was not 80,000, but it was a lot of people. Stadium shows
80,000. No, that's a lot of energy.
Well, the Rose Bowl too, it's a bowl. But it's a bowl, elongated bowl. So it's if you're at the other end of the stage, you're pretty far away, I would assume.
Yeah, so my husband got us pretty good seats, so we had a really good view. He got the tickets and he took the girls to see Taylor Swift during the Eras Tour at SoFi, and SoFi is another like 100,000 stadium. And I was like, I just really do not want to be around that many people. Like I would really rather avoid it. So I didn't go to that one actually because
you didn't go. Oh, you could have gone, but you didn't go. Oh.
I was like, let this be a father-daughter thing. There were so many father-daughter groups that went though. And I loved that they had that, that's a memory that they will always have, that their dad, and he loves Taylor Swift. He actually does. I
saw a lot of that on social media. It was adorable. And I think some of the Eras tour was filmed at SoFi, right? If I remember.
I think almost all of it.
I think most of it.
There was a girl that went to our high school who is in the documentary.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. That is so cool.
I always thought that like I would want to go to a show at Madison Square Garden, and it would take a very special band for me to do something like that again. Like Oasis was a worth it experience. But anything more than 20,000. And if I have a choice, I will go 2,000 or less venue. Like the House of Blues shows are smaller shows, much smaller shows. And we have seats. Once you get to your mid 40s, you want a seat and you don't want to be
the Garden though.
Well, no, we've seen the Dead at the Garden, but we didn't know. But now I'm all about seats. I don't go anywhere unless I have a seat. And I'm 54.
It's not a thing.
Is not my thing. So, okay. Do you have any more questions? Are you good?
Again, I think you're remarkable. Congratulations on figuring shit out.
Yeah. It's a great way to start.
We're all doing the best we can.
No, I love how you've reclaimed yourself and set up boundaries, and it's awesome. The timing's great because you're gonna approach a twilight, and you kind of got it figured out.
You're ahead of the game.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, because a lot of us we're discovering this, we turn 50. So you're ahead. So it's awesome.
One thing that was weirding me out, I'm good now, but is you're Gen X, but you're 8 years younger than us, I think. That's weird. That's like, I don't know. It's just weird. It's like you have these experiences, you're Gen X, but you're on that tail end. So when the fact that you had Ethernet in college, that wasn't a thing for us. But we're still in that same generation.
But Gen X is such a wide range, and
that's what I mean. It's wild
during those years that we for those of us that are in different pockets of it do have such different experiences, even though we're all the same generation.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's very cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last question is always, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, I hope in 5 years, I'm doing a lot more traveling because I will have, both kids out of the house, and there will be more time for that, less day-to-day commitment. I definitely hope I will have, I would like to have written at least one more, if not 2 more books by then. I've started my next one, inspired in part by my mom's romance scammer. And so just kind of but I think it might have a dual timeline sort of thing happening a little bit. But And I would like to say that I'm even further down the road of setting those boundaries as my kids are adults and living their adults' life. My youngest will be close to the end of college at that point, and just really like enjoying the blessing of having adult children that hopefully will have spread their wings wide and I can touch base with them on a regular basis, but have my own life going with writing and traveling. And that's
perfect.
that's what
Yeah.
Sounds absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
Absolutely lovely. And I think you and your husband can already see it, are going to have such an amazing transition into parenting adult children. And I think you're going to love that. I can tell you it's awesome. We love it.
It's cool.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And you can't describe it to someone until you go through it. But just the way you've tackled raising them, you guys, when they say you get to reap your rewards or whatever, the time you put in, you're going to really be like, oh, okay, now this is awesome. This is when we really get to enjoy all that. Everything we put in, you finally are really getting it all back when they're adult children. And so I'm excited for you guys because that's like a whole nother aspect of your future, so it's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to watch out for more books. No, but these aren't sequels, right? It's going to be.
No, as of right now, I'm not planning a sequel. I have had people ask it. I think it would be fun to, follow along that's, the next couple years in the 90s into her college experience or whatever. But right now, that's not where my inspiration is taking me. I'm really, I'm more really diving into the psyche of somebody who would choose to be a scammer, basically, to make money off of that. And also the psyche of somebody who's so broken that they're so susceptible to what the rest of the world sees as obviously a scam, and to really dive into those personalities and kind of play in that world a little bit.
Like that predator victim type of duality relationship. So what?
I do have one.
Do it.
Well, no, this is more business.
Okay.
How do people buy your book? So Barnes and Noble, I assume Amazon, your website?
Yep, it's in all the places you can buy books or get books on Libby and Kobo and all those things. I'm a big advocate for every main street in America having a library and a privately owned business bookstore, like a local bookstore. So you can absolutely just go and request it at your library or request it at your local bookstore, and they will order it for you if it's not there. And that supports them and supports me. So I encourage people. It does touch on some tricky subjects. And I know that a lot of states in our country are kind of pushing some censorship with books. And I say, please go get it at your library. Go get it, because we need more of these books out there that cover these topics because they're really important. And too many of them are getting pulled off of shelves. So let's just keep putting more of them on the shelves. Let's let people really understand the world that they live in and the experiences that people around them are having. Or you can always just go to my website. It's also on my website, JaimeTowzen.com. And if you happen to order it there, you can get a signed copy sent to you.
Good to know. And any way you can get in touch with Jaime is going to be in the notes of the description. So every link, anything. And listeners, if you have any questions that you have for Jaime, please leave them. We will make sure that she sees them. And again, any way to get in touch with her, to buy her book. What about the watercolors? Is that all?
Those are on my website too.
On the website. If you want to look at it, check out her watercolors. Again, we can't thank you enough for sharing, honestly, your journey, your story, your wisdom, and your inspiration, your creative inspiration, which I think is something people desperately need now more than ever. And especially, as you suggested, as a guide to lead them on their new path, their new journey. It's such a great tool that's overlooked. So thank you for sharing that. I know there's going to be a lot of listeners that will be able to relate to that or never have even thought of using that as a tool before. And it could change the whole trajectory of their life. So we really appreciate you sharing your insight into that and for coming on. And we hope to maybe have you back when your next book is published, if you would like to come back and talk about your next book.
I would love that. Thank you so much to both of you for having me. I've loved our conversation. I really appreciate what you're doing with this show, and it's just been a pleasure to share this. And I do hope that, yes, to have another conversation in a short time when the next book is coming out.
Absolutely. The doors, you have a recurring guest spot here whenever you want to come on and talk about your next project. You're welcome. You just let us know. And again, any listeners, please leave any questions, comments, and we will make sure that Jaime sees them. Or if you have them for Brian and I, we will get